Hello. Yeah, 3 minutes late. Well, we might be a little bit more late, because Monhop's running a little late, but I figured might as well Monhop on myself. Um, immediately, Joshua Karkik for £2. Thank you very much. No message attached. But yeah, we're going to be doing another episode of The Remnant today. That's the podcast I have with Monarcho Hopian. Whoops, a daisies, what the flip there? Oh, that didn't kill the stream. Still streaming. Yeah, if you want to join in, it's hosted on Twitter Spaces. Um, and yeah, I think the topic for today, we're going to be discussing some of the things around the Iran war, which, I was assured that we were so powerful, we had so much sway over Donald Trump, something like this would never happen. Obviously, if we got Kamala, then we'd be at war with Iran right now. But thankfully, the Mises Caucus managed to land us a Trump victory. So no war with Iran. And you missed the last episode. Well, I mean, don't worry about it. It's still there. I'm sure you can catch up on it if you want. Where's this? Where's this Twitter space? One hop's late. Yes, he is. See, he warned me he would be a little bit late. Fine. There's the link to the space. I'll send it into chat right now. The link. I have to wait until One hop's able to hop on. Gonna have to miss this one. You got a weird schedule for work. Well, don't worry about it. You can always watch the VOD afterwards. The one fear is because this is like the ass crack of dawn for Monhop, is that he sleeps in one day and then it's off, which could happen. But he messaged me like 15 minutes ago saying he was going to be a little bit late. Fine. It is. Not live on X yet or something? Yeah, indeed it's not. Because Monhop has to start the space there, but we can hang out for a little bit. I don't see any problem with that. I suppose, I mean, if if he's fallen back to sleep by mistake, then I guess we'll have to pivot. But hopefully he's able to come on. Yeah, someone was asking me earlier, like, if I would be fine with, some of the actions being done by the state if I'm only opposed to it because it's a state. I'm fine with like some of them, like for instance, killing the Ayatollah. I don't think that man deserves to live. I think he's committed many crimes. I believe in the death penalty. And even beyond that, it's a defensive action, defense of the people who live in Iran, who have been subjugated by the Ayatollah. So that's fine. But what people need to understand with these wars, obviously, we've seen plenty. There's a big track record of the U.S. in the Middle East. When you have these big, bloated militaries going to war, never just these little surgical precision strikes on just who's the actual criminal. It's very often, massive amounts of collateral damage. I mean, this is this is like a whole thing people used to smear objectivists with. Is what's his face, Leonard Peikoff, who advocated like just he said he would be fine if the military recommended to like go in and just fucking completely systematically wipe out the entire country with like nuclear warheads and stuff, which is, I suppose that's where you get to when you've embraced statism. Proheretics saying either way, if the state does it, it's unjustified. Yeah, definitely. Like the means that they're going to use to do this, it's all stolen, and also they just can't contain that at all. Oh, there we go. Space is started. Pardon me. All right, let's.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Remnant. Thank you all for coming along. I'm sure it's going to be another cracking episode. We're up to episode 6 now, so getting into the swing of things. Sorry I'm slightly late, 10 minutes or so late. Had some shit that I needed to sort out this morning before I could jump on, but we're here now. Zulu, how's things? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've just been chilling with the chat for the past 10 minutes or so. But actually, it was fortuitous because about 10 minutes before this, I realized I hadn't done the thumbnail or anything, so I had to scramble to get that done. A bit of a
Yeah,
chiller
I did
start to
notice
this
that
one.
there was. Yeah, I did notice there was no like whatever it's called, like preview thing up for this when I first woke up this morning. So figured you must have forgotten to do that. But nonetheless, we're here now, all ready to go. So listen, obviously, there's been a fair bit going on in the world over the past couple of weeks. I think that's fair to say. And as I said in the intro or the announcement of this episode, neither Zulu nor I would consider ourselves to be foreign policy experts. Okay, I'm not going to take you on a deep dive into the history of Israel versus Iran and all the various other actors that are involved in this conflict. Because if I tried to do that, then I would just be bullshitting you, and we don't want to do that. But what I do want to do is kind of talk about what this means from the perspective of like the liberty movement and the liberty sphere, because obviously one of the key talking points that we've had over the past couple of years now, it's getting on the verge of, is how selling out, or what we perceive to be selling out, to the establishment and to the populist right, if you will, by libertarians, is having disastrous consequences for the liberty movement. And I think that some of those disastrous consequences, I mean, I feel like they've been coming to fruition for quite some time now, but it seems like they're really coming to fruition now, where you have a situation where this individual in Donald Trump, who the liberty movement, large segments of it backed and said, yeah, this is the guy you've got to vote for. This is the most important election of our lifetimes, whatever else. And,
I was just
they,
saying actually in the preamble, I
yeah,
was like, um, well, if we had Kamala right now, I bet you would probably be at war with Iran or something. So, thankfully, the Mises Caucus were able to secure us that Trump victory, so we could
yeah.
avoid war with Iran.
Well, genuinely, like that was, I remember Clint Russell. I don't know if some of the others said this, but I can definitively remember Clint Russell saying that one of the most problematic things about a Kamala presidency would be tensions with Iran, would be how that could potentially unfold if Kamala was in office, and he just trusted Donald Trump to not do this. And this is not just within the liberty movement. So I don't know if many of you people are aware, but there's a show called Breaking Points with Saga and Jetty and Crystal Ball. I don't really like Crystal very much, but Saga, and to be clear, Saga is like a pretty populist right type guy in his own right. Like he's been pretty pro the immigration stuff, and he was pretty pro tariff, although he thought the way Trump rolled out the tariffs was stupid. But in principle, he doesn't oppose tariffs. So I'm not saying he's some like principled libertarian guy that we should all support prescriptively, but I do think he offers some pretty good descriptive analysis of what is going on, and I think that's worthwhile, even if they don't like politically align with you or ideologically align with you. And he was basically like, I just can't believe this. Like, it's just absolutely incredible to me that this is happening. And from my perspective, like, it really shouldn't be. Like, I think libertarians have known for quite some time that, politicians tend to lie about stuff, and they tend to engage in endless wars and, military conflicts, because that is, as Murray Rothbard would put it, the health of the state, right? So it shouldn't be really that surprising that Donald Trump, who is one of the most pro-Israel candidates ever, would get us involved, or get the US involved, and therefore us, because Australia is now sending military hardware and troops over to that conflict now. It shouldn't be at all surprising whatsoever from my perspective.
Especially considering like Trump's personality. Like this is completely in line with how he views the use of the state. Like he said right from the beginning he wants to be very heavy-handed on immigration. He's fine with that. Like all his supporters are saying, like, yeah, no, he's going to be fucking Julius Caesar for us. He was saying how he wants to designate cartels terrorist organizations. Like, he's not the most anti-war guy you've ever seen. Like, I mean, if it was fucking Massey in the White House, then out of nowhere Massey starts going to war with Iran, then yeah, I understand why you'd be a little bit blindsided by it. But Trump really, it seems right up his alley to be going for war, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to get to some of the people who are on the stage now, but before we do that, I had a quick. So I don't know. There's this TV show called The Lincoln Lawyer, which has been on Netflix recently. They introduced the fourth season. It's based on a book, and there was also a movie with Matthew McConaughey in it. But anyway, so the Netflix TV show is out at the moment, and I was watching it because my girlfriend really likes Netflix TV shows, and so I kind of have to go along with it. But I was watching it, the most recent series, and there was a really funny, or not funny, but there was a really interesting moment in it that I think is kind of relevant, or the message from that scene is kind of relevant today. So basically, I'll give a very brief overview. Basically, what happens is um, the defendant is in a situation where he believes that his attorney-client privilege is being violated, where basically people are listening in on his privileged phone conversations with his like legal team and whatnot. And so what he does is he pretends to hatch like a plot to run away from, or flee the country, flee the United States in order to avoid the charges. And he hatches this plan and like reveals it during this privileged phone conversation to try and prove that people are listening in, because then they'll obviously report it if they find out he's hatching this plan. So he does this, and sure enough, the prosecution brings it up when during a bail hearing, and they're trying to prove that hey, he shouldn't get bail because he's a flight risk now, and we've got the proof of it because of this phone conversation. And there's obviously like the big climactic reveal where he proves like actually this was like a privileged phone conversation, and what we've done is actually just prove that people have been listening in on phone conversations they shouldn't be, and passing that information on to the prosecution, right? Anyway, so the prosecutor, like the key point of that from our perspective is that the prosecutor then turns to the judge and is like, "Judge, listen, I had no idea this was going to happen. Like, I had no reason to suspect, that someone would do this. Like, I had it on good authority that this was happening. I had I had no reason to believe that they were doing this by listening in on privileged phone conversations that was unlawful, right?" And the judge just looks at the prosecutor and says, well, clearly you had every reason to suspect, because that's what actually happened, right? And that's, I think, is how we should treat people who say to us, look, we had no reason to suspect that Donald Trump would invade Iran. We had no reason to suspect that he would be so pro-war and pro-Israel. And the answer is, well, clearly you should have been, because he has been, right? So either you were aware that this was going to happen and you voted for him anyway, or you weren't, in which case you were an idiot who couldn't foresee a very plausible outcome that has actually come to pass in this, in the actual reality that we're living in. So anyway, I thought that was something worth bringing up. But let me get to some of the people on stage. I know you don't have your hands up yet, but I'm just going to assume you want to jump in and say something. So I'll start off with you can always change your mind. You always seems to be one of the first people up on stage each and every time. So you can always change your mind. If you wanted to jump in at all, man, please go ahead.
I don't have anything in mind right now, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. No, thanks for being here. Zulu, look, as far as like what we're going through at the moment, um, do you think that we are likely to see a shift in how like some of the libertarian people that I will throw to G in a sec, but I do want to ask Zulu this now. I've started asking the question. Um, do you think some of the culprits that we're alluding to here that have failed the test, so to speak? Do you think we're going to see a shift in you know, how they strategize going forward, or is it just going to be the same old trap that they're going to fall for next time around?
Um, I mean, I hope that they improve. It's going to take a hell of a lot. I think it should take a hell of a lot for the radicals, for the vanguard, to ever trust these people again. There's a quote from Peikoff, I believe it's in Fact and Value, where he's talking about how it's if somebody is like a socialist, and then they change, they become a capitalist. Well, it's up to them to like prove objectively and over time that their error was honest, that they have recognized their error and now they're better. Otherwise, they can just commit the same error again the next day. And that's really, I think, at the core of this, is that I certainly hope that, 10, 20 years down the line, they will have recognized their error completely and they'll move on and they can be reaccepted within the vanguard. But I very much doubt it. I think I was very clear and decisive in Anatomy of the Celebritarian that none of these people have a philosophy and they've just kind of defaulted to a sort of pragmatism. And until they check those premises, until they understand the error of pragmatism, it's just going to be the same error next time and next time, right? And fundamentally, for a pragmatist, that no amount of well that didn't work actually can disprove them, because they're like, oh yeah, well we had to go out and try. We had to. You can just imagine them saying this. Well, at least we tried something. We had to try to do that, and now we're trying something new today, right? And now we're trying this new strategy in this new election, and it doesn't matter how many times they're wrong. Pragmatism is fundamentally a test and check philosophy. They just got to keep testing it and keep checking, and until they realize the error of that premise, it's going to just keep going in a loop forever, and no amount of failure can ever reveal to them just how wrong they are. So I'm fairly pessimistic that the neo-prags will stop being pragmatists. I expect they'll kind of, either stay with the libertarian movement if they want to keep pretending to be libertarians. Certainly some of them will do that, but I expect a lot of them will kind of get swept up and dissolve into other various dissident rightist factions, like the Groypers, like the paleo-conservatives, so on and so forth. I expect a lot of them will just kind of go more in that direction, or even in like the conspiracy theory direction, which you see a lot, where it's like, oh well, who's that guy like Ian Carroll or something, where it's just the most annoying shit on planet Earth, where everything is like, okay, well now it's a new conspiracy theory I gotta look into. It's like, okay, well, you're not really identifying the core problem here. You're just going, and it's a big cabal, and they're doing these evil things, and they're worshiping Moloch and everything. It's like, okay, this is also non-fundamental. Like, what are you even talking about? Who cares about this?
Yeah, I've long been skeptical of people who kind of build their entire brands around conspiracy theories. Even if the conspiracy theories are like, relatively plausible ones, and there's certainly many of them out there that are, hey, like this could this could probably be true actually when you kind of look into it. But I think if you're building your brand around being conspiratorial, then like you kind of alluded to, you have to keep going for the next one, if that makes sense. Like you have to keep, it's like, well, if there's no conspiracy, then we just have to make one up and kind of find a way to make this, oh well, actually, like even this is even this like Iran one, it's like, well, actually this is all a distraction from the Epstein files. It's like okay. Or maybe it's just because I don't know, Donald Trump got hundreds of millions of dollars donated to him by hugely pro-Zionist individual donors who really, really wanted this conflict, and maybe he's just an actual war hawk. Like maybe it isn't to do. Like maybe it is to do with the Epstein files. I can't necessarily disprove that, but I want some evidence other than just hey, these two things happen to be occurring simultaneously, to then imply that one caused the other, if that makes sense. Um, I did also want to say, like, yeah, I share your wish that this could be different and that people could realize the error of their ways. But I also share your pessimism in the likelihood of it. I've even seen, I hate to call this guy out because we both really, 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 really like him and we're both drawing him heavily. But even like Stefan Kinsella, I saw a post from him like a couple of hours ago, I think. Well, I saw it recently, but I think he only put it up quite recently as well. Where it was basically like the take was more or less that, you know, Kamala just inevitably would have been worse. Like that is basically what there's. This is the fallback option for people who defended voting for Donald Trump. Is that well, Kamala just definitively would have been worse. And the problem with that is that's a claim that can never actually be disproven, right? It's a counterfactual that we will never actually see play out in reality. We will never see what would have happened if Kamala Harris had won the 2024 US election. So it's always going to be a fallback option. You can always just, as bad as Trump, if this gets even definitively worse, this becomes a forever war. And there's troops on the ground from the United States and the UK and Australia, and they're getting killed in a bloody conflict. You can always be like, well, if Kamala had been in charge, then it would have been a nuclear war. And if Trump starts setting off nukes, it's like, well, if Kamala had been in charge, then the nukes would have been fired off 2 years ago. Like it's just every single possible alternative, every single possible thing that happens because it's just the nature of the beast, it's a counterfactual. You just don't know what would have happened if the other person had been in charge. I have no idea whether Kamala would have been worse or not. What I do know is that what Trump has done so far has been incredibly destructive, incredibly bad by pretty much any standard, any reasonable standard that a libertarian could offer. And so, whether Kamala would have been worse or not, I mean, I don't really care. What I care about is the fact that these people threw in their lot with this guy, and this is what we've had happen. So that's kind of my perspective on it. I'm going to throw it to you. I know G had his hand up before and then dropped it, and that's why I kind of kept rambling. And now G's got his hand up again. So, G, welcome to the stage. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello? Can you guys hear
Yep,
me?
I can hear you. I think I can hear you. Okay. Yep.
Right. Yeah, this is all basically just the problem with politics, right? I'm calling it now, right? All these people who were, like in the Mises Institute, right? This is like they're gonna be contradicting what they said, like months ago or when was it when they kicked out Walter Block, right? Where they're gonna take the same position as Walter Block did in just a couple of like a weeks or something.
Yeah, I think again, by the standard that we would probably set for what constitutes principal libertarians, you could probably make a case that, hey, Walter Block probably doesn't fit that criteria given some of the takes he's had with respect to Israel. But the standard that these people apply,
Right.
as far as what constitutes a libertarian, I think Walter Block absolutely fits the bill for a libertarian by any reasonable standard.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to talk about how, like, you know, I mean, obviously the government's lying to you guys. I mean, the government is always lying to us, but it's like it's very clear. Like, anytime there's a war, they're just constantly lying and lying and lying. Like, there's just like a constant like media stream, so you just see it, right? But this war is not going to be anything like they're saying, right? With the air superiority and everything, like taking out missiles and all that. Like, I just want to I want to send Zulu a video because he's streaming right now to look at because this video is pretty crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on your point, like you're 100% right. There's always been this. Well, so I've seen a
Like
few
if
clips
you
floating around.
yeah, if you've seen
Um,
like the press conferences and everything, they're talking about how they're chasing down all the Iranian missiles and everything, right?
Right, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, I think he's called. I mean, that should have been the first port of call, was the fact that they renamed that department to, the Department of War. Okay, maybe this guy isn't the peace candidate after all. But anyway, so Pete Hegseth's
Are you
talking
guys
about
seeing this
how
video?
they
I
have
sent
total. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I sent you it on Discord, Zulu. Let me hold up. I can't. Let me pull up your stream. Are you guys seeing this video?
I cannot see the DM.
I sent it in your server.
Oh, okay.
You can also send it there on Twitter under the Remnant.
Yeah, it's a Twitter link. It's a video on Twitter.
Yeah, you can send it here too, like in this chat, basically.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
a comments button.
Yeah, there's a little comments button at the bottom right if you wanted to chuck it in there. That's
Yeah,
another
it's because
option for
I'm
you.
talking on my phone and I have it like on my computer. You know.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair. Anyway, while that's being sorted out, yeah, I mean, one of the things that's been brought up by a few people is how much the rhetoric around this from people like Pete Hegseth and others basically mirrors how they were talking about Iraq and
Right.
Afghanistan early on in that conflict. Like Pete Hegseth was like, okay, maybe this will be a few days, maybe it'll be a few weeks, maybe it'll be a few months. We don't quite know. Okay, but what we do know is we have total air superiority, and we have the total dominion over the skies. We're going to have troops. We're going to have
Yeah, and
aircraft
that was
carriers. We're going to have
inevitable.
fighter jets in the air 24/7. Any time an Iranian general looks up, he's going to see US and Israeli air forces in the sky. That's literally pretty much what he said, almost
Here,
verbatim.
does this work? I put it in the comments.
Here, let me have a look. I will put it up in the.
It was in general chat in your server, Zulu.
I will chuck it up in the.
Or
Thingy
did I? Oh no, in my server. In my server.
Oh,
My
okay.
bad.
bar.
I thought I was in your server.
Yeah, I've got the video now.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like Iron's the first to do this. Did you pull it up?
Yeah, they're launching like
Yeah.
missiles out of the sand or whatever.
Yeah, look at this shit. And
And like the thing with like if we just take
you
There-
can't like how are they gonna hunt these missiles down? Right? They're literally like they have cities underground where they're building missiles. They're able to build missiles underground, right? And just like look, you can't even tell where the next one is. You see how spread out they are, and like how
and
like
compound
how like
compound
the
this with
terrain
like
is like
compound this with
I'm gonna
like
let Zulu jump back in here real quick.
let's like even just take their claims, their propaganda as given. Let's say that they're correct, that Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. Well, if that's the case, and we know how terrorist organizations operate, they are like in this cell structure where each of these cells can kind of operate without necessarily having a centralized command. So that lends itself very heavily to, okay, you've decapitated the leadership, but now you've got, you've got this terrorist organization bigger than any other terrorist organization with far greater means than any other terrorist organization, and you think that's just going to go away. Like, no, you're going to be fighting a forever war. Like what happened with the Taliban? They took out all the leadership of the Taliban. Did the Taliban go away? No, it currently controls Afghanistan. And Iran is a much bigger, much wealthier nation than Afghanistan. So this isn't going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah. Let me to be explicitly clear about this. The Ayatollah and the Iranian leadership were definitively prepared for this to happen. They were absolutely 100% prepared for an outcome where the US carries out these strikes and basically all of them die. All of like the main leadership dies, and they basically below the Ayatollah and his closest like advisors, they had a very, as you kind of put it, decentralized and dispersed leadership structure to where it's like trying to fight the Hydra. Okay, you just every time you try and attack one of these heads of the snake, you kill it, two more grow back. You kill it, two more grow back. And while you're trying to kill one, there's all these other ones that are gaining power and gaining authority over their respective, as you said, put it, cells, right? This is just you're never going to get a definitive win because, as Hegseth said, they have total air superiority. It's like, well, okay, the US had total air superiority over Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. Okay, and they never could fully flush out the terrorists because you're just never going to be able to under the structure that these people put in place. There's always going to be more people that are willing to step up and, under their worldview, what they're doing. If they die, well, let's martyrdom. They go to heaven with 72 virgins or however many it is. Like these people are not going to give up, and they will fight to the last man, and it will take you a very, very long time to get to the last man with how these people operate. But gee, I'll let you jump back in now, man.
Yeah, and remember, there's this great video on YouTube by MRH Legacy about the whole war on terror, right? And all the escalations and all of that. Great video. But time and time and again, right? What we see, they think, like, I don't know, there's this myth or something, right? That like we're gonna bring freedom to them with bombs, right? You know what I mean? They think that bombing them is gonna somehow make them rise up, right, against their government, right? And it's not gonna make them hate us and start wanting to fight us and bring them together to fight us, right?
Yeah, it is
That's
kind of a
that's what
weird
happens
argument
every
that
time.
if you just airstrike the Iranian leadership enough, then because that's been the argument is like, again, Hegseth and Gabbard and Tulsi Gabbard and a few others have been like, well, what we're trying to do is give the Iranian people an opportunity to rise up against their own government. And it's like, well, if that, philosophical theory of history, right? If the revolutionary fervor was in place already to overthrow the Ayatollah and the current regime in Iran, then it would already be happening. Okay, just
Right.
airstriking a bunch of people and killing. I mean, again, the Ayatollah is not just a political figure in the same way a president of the United States is. This guy is the Pope of Shiite Muslims. Okay, you just killed
Well,
their
Yeah.
you're
most
saying that's
deeply.
unlike the U.S. political system. I'm not so sure with how some of these MAGA people are reacting.
Well, that is fair. That is absolutely fair. But this person is their Trump and their Pope all rolled into one. Okay, this dude is you didn't just kill off again as you probably correctly pointed out. If someone was to assassinate Trump tomorrow, there'd be a lot of people that'd be really, 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 really pissed off about that. But, like, no shit.
Yeah,
But
it's Trump's advisors, right, who are lying to him. They're lying to him and saying that, yeah, they're gonna rise up, right? Like I forget who, like it's like specific like war advisors or something, right? They're literally telling him this, like, oh yeah, the Iran people are gonna rise up for sure if we just like bomb like the Ayatollah, all these people, right?
yeah, exactly. That is, again, if there was genuinely revolutionary fervor, it really isn't actually that difficult to kill off a political leader. Like, if you had a situation where the overwhelming majority of Iranian people just were desperate to overthrow the current regime, overthrow the Ayatollah, and institute like a democracy or something in Iran, which is just laughable. But
And and,
if that was
and since
genuinely there, then you wouldn't need the US to step in and do these airstrikes, because if you had 90% of the Iranian public who felt this way, it would just happen because you're just going to be able to overwhelm the small number of guards and security that the Ayatollah, relatively speaking, that these leaders are going to have in place. If 90% of your population just wants this to be a revolution anyway.
In the exact same way that the Islamic Revolution already happened in Iran, there was a large support for an Islamist regime in Iran, and guess what you got? You got an Islamist regime in Iran. Now, until that change, because there used to be like a different kind of kettle of worms, so to speak. If the Ayatollah was being constantly attacked by his people, and there was like constant, like, he was on the verge of going out, then yeah, maybe he doesn't turn into a forever war if you just like assassinate him or whatever. But like that would be like the CIA would just go in and fucking like poisonous food or whatever. Like it wouldn't be we're sending in like 50% of our air force and like our navy and everything. Like this is clearly they're expecting on some level that this could turn into a forever war. And like I saw this tweet a little bit earlier where somebody like did a projection of like their predictions for how long it was going to take, and they're saying like, well, by next Friday, if my model holds, they're going to be expecting the war to last 1,000 years because they just keep changing the goalposts. It's like, no, it'll be a couple of days. It's going to be a few hours. Oh no, it's actually going to be a few weeks. Oh, we're prepared to go until September. Like they keep extending it out. Like clearly, they understand that this could turn into a forever war, and they just don't care.
Right, and their goals keep changing. I mean, you hear them, and like there was a interview with Netanyahu like just the other day, and he was saying like, I don't really care what happens with Iran, right? I just want them to like I just want them to get fucked up, basically. Like all the I just want them to balkanize or whatever, right? Anything bad to happen, but uh, really like I think also you said like that there was like this popular support or whatever for the Islamic Revolution, but I mean back then I think it's actually more like it's more exemplary, like what you talk about, about speaking to the remnant and stuff like that, or libertarian Leninism, because like it was like or radicalism, right? Because they were the most radical at the time. It was just like you had all these like secular like the heads of state, right, in the Middle East were all like given their place by the Europeans, right, like as like secular powers, right, imposed by the Europeans, right. But basically there was all these different like factions, right. There was uh, many factions, right. And the Ayatollah, right, he was just one of the factions, right? But he was just the most radical, in his messaging and all that.
For sure. I did just want to bring up a comment that I've seen in the replies so far where someone said, ZZ, killing theocrats is good, actually. Let me be like super clear here because I mean, to be fair, I wasn't clear. I was planning on being clear about this up front, but I'll be clear about it now. I've I'm not shedding one single tear for the death of the Ayatollah. Like, let me be explicitly clear about that. That guy, the only downside as far as the Ayatollah himself was that he probably didn't suffer enough prior to being killed because it was probably some kind of airstrike where he was just killed instantly. This is a person who, among other things, you know, it may not have been him actually. It might have been the previous Ayatollah, but as far as I know, he completely supported this kind of action where, you know, his prescription was, hey, if you have a female prisoner, before we execute her, make sure to, I don't know if I can use this word, I'll say grape her in order to ensure that she doesn't get sent to heaven, right? Because virgins go to heaven under the Islamic worldview. So we got to make sure to sexually assault her first so that she won't go to heaven when we then execute her. So this was a brutal dictator who killed thousands upon thousands of people who politically opposed him. Okay, so let me be explicitly clear about that. He deserved to die, and he deserved to die a far more painful death and long suffering death than what he ended up suffering. That does not mean that this was a smart idea from the US government. Okay, like those two things are distinct. The Ayatollah deserved to die, absolutely yes. The correct course of action was to potentially get yourself entangled in a 20-year war with whoever springs up in his place. That was not smart, and that was not the wisest course of action. So I don't want anyone to be that's here right now to be in the comments being like, well, you support the Ayatollah. Okay, I do not support the Ayatollah. Zulu doesn't support the Ayatollah. None of us support the Ayatollah and his actions as the man in charge of the Iranian regime. Okay, none of us support that. But that doesn't mean that we must then support any action that is taken against him, regardless of the side effects and regardless of the justification that was offered for carrying out those attacks. You can always change your mind. Did you want to jump in? I seen you come off mic.
Yes, yeah, and just in general principle, any government action is bad. So whatever
Right.
classification is not good.
Right. I wanted to say, like, we have to be the reason for, like, what you're talking about, right? We have to be very careful about this, right? Especially since, with the whole radicalism versus pragmatism thing, right? Because this is exactly where the seeds of pragmatism get laid, right? It is where you look at something done by the government, right, and then just like based off vibes, right? Not looking at the cause, right? Not looking at it's the government that did it, right, and just stopping the analysis right there. The government did it, it's unjustified, right? You go downstream, right? You look at the effects, right, and just like based off vibes, right, you're like that's a good thing, right? And then you just start disintegrating it, right? Like the idea of the state as like this evil, right? The state does some good things here, does some good things there, right?
Does the state do good?
You guys can hear
Can the
me?
state can the state do good?
No.
No. Okay, so any government action is bad then.
But no,
Right.
he was saying based on vibes, I think, where some people will look at just a policy and go, oh, I kind of like that policy. Whereas G's saying to analyze it in a principled manner, where you're not just looking at the downstream effects or anything.
Right.
True.
But I'm saying just like, yeah, as a general rule, you don't want to take for granted that it's the state doing it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I do think so. I do think there is. You're absolutely right. Okay, we need to, as libertarians, take as our basis that any action by the state is unjustified, and we need to make that point explicitly clear in any of our analysis. 100% not going to dispute that whatsoever. Okay, I do think there is also room to have a nuanced perspective on specific different actions by the state, particularly in regards to military conflicts, and to be able to be discerning with respect to, okay, which ones were more severe and which ones were less severe. So easy comparison. What's happening right now in Iran versus what happened in Venezuela, where basically the US government came in, took Nicolas Maduro and left. Like it was a matter of hours and no, US troops were harmed, very few civilians, as far as I know. Again, that might not be true, but as far as I know, very, very few casualties. And we need to be able to reckon with the difference between those two things, because if we start to fail to do that, or if we fail to differentiate between the different kind of military actions and their consequences, then that overall I think depletes the people's perspective or views on our foreign policy analysis.
Well, I
If
mean,
we're just going to be
it's
like,
about what the consequences are, really, right? It's about the seen and the unseen, right? We don't want to isolate. Okay, these are the consequences, the casualties, or whatever, right? We know what the state does, right? We know what the state does. It takes resources, right, from the rightful owners of the homesteaders, the producers, the traders of it, and puts them where they otherwise, where they otherwise wouldn't want them to be, right?
yeah, absolutely. Again, not
Right.
disputing that
It's
one.
all about it's distortion, right? So
Yeah,
this is how we have to look at it like economists, right?
absolutely.
Really.
I think I
Like and the distortion, the
totally agree.
consequences, right? The
I,
consequences are
I
not
totally agree. I think
whatever you
the
can
only problem
isolate there.
is the only problem is if you. So again, I'll invoke the name of Dave Smith again. So in the previous Iranian strikes, he was basically catastrophizing and being like, "This will inevitably result in World War III." And when that didn't come to pass, that makes him look like a fool, right? Because he's made this catastrophizing prediction about how bad this is going to, like, this will inevitably lead to. But now, to be fair, it did down the line result in, probably clearly it was precipitating what's happened now. So in the long run, he ended up
Right,
actually
right.
probably being on the money. But there is a room for being like, okay, we need to be willing to not just put a blanket statement that all military actions are equally bad. Again, they are bad from the perspective of libertarian legal theory, but to me, I suppose my broader point is there's something that Adrian Shepard has mentioned to me. Like, that is just the uninteresting part of the analysis with respect to foreign policy from a libertarian standpoint. It's like, yeah, we all get it. If you're a
The,
libertarian, you
the
can be
problem,
sure
the problem,
that
the problem is the question. The question, like, is this like this action in Venezuela compared to this action over here in Iran, or this action by this other state, right? That's the question is invalid in itself, right? It's just we know
so
that, right? This is the problem, right? The seen and the unseen, right?
so
You're not asking the right question. You're not looking at the right like what the consequences actually are, right? It's you have to, in order to find what the consequences actually are, you have to trace it back to the source, right?
no, again, like I don't think that, hey, which military action was more devastating to, or more aggressive is an
I don't think that's a
invalid
valid
question.
question.
I
Yes, it
think it
is.
is. I
What
think
do you
I
mean
think
more aggressive? I don't know what that means.
I think that, well, okay, so I would say that which military action precipitated a greater sum of aggression is absolutely a valid question.
Is that how we analyze aggression?
No, no. Again, to be
Is
clear,
it additive?
to be
Is
clear,
aggression an additive
I'm,
like
I'm
thing?
not disputing the idea that there is a, the hard line that libertarians need to draw is no aggression under any circumstances. Again, that is not in dispute. What is in dispute is if we're going to draw a complete equivalence between, total nuclear annihilation and, the assassination of a single political figure.
It's
Like,
not about
I think that
drawing an
degrades
equivalence.
our
It's
political
that
analysis.
there's no equivalence or inequivalence or anything. There's no comparison to be drawn, right? There's no like it's a it it's just there's nothing to be drawn from that question. There's no it's not a valid
Well,
question,
you can
right? I don't
compare it
know what the standard
economically,
is for comparison.
right? You could just take like the naive approach and just go, okay, well this caused $20 trillion worth of damage, which is obviously going to impact pretty much everybody on the globe, versus this caused $100 worth of damage. And I mean, we do this all the time. That's why we're sitting here talking about the Iran war and not like some guy who broke into a Tesco last week. Like, we can clearly see that there's a big difference in terms of what we should focus
But
on.
what does that mean, right? Because $100 here, right, in this time, in this context, is not the same as $1,000,000 here in this time, in this context, with these like it's the seen and the unseen, right? It's about the actors involved, the resource allocation problems involved, right?
Well, yes, but that doesn't mean that that it's somehow like impossible for you to like look at a situation where there's nuclear war
Because
over the entire globe and go, yeah, I'd much rather live in the world where that doesn't happen, and instead some guy breaks into Tesco's.
I mean, then it's just like based off vibes, isn't it?
I mean, I'm basing it off of monetary damages.
Yeah, but that's not like monetary damages in what like respect, like what's being damaged, right? Is it fiat money, right? Then nothing's being damaged. Like
Well, no,
the only damage
you
is
can cause
well, you have
damages
to
to
trace it
someone,
back to
even
the
if,
state,
like,
right? The
I
only reason
understand that.
there's
Monetary
damage
damages
is
is
the
just the
state.
unit of account that you use to
Yeah,
calculate how much. It's not the physical fact that, pieces of
Well,
paper were
fiat isn't
destroyed.
real.
well,
Fiat
I
isn't
understand
like.
that fiat
Are you
will
It's not the
comparing
unit of
fiat
distort.
with?
account that we use,
I
so
understand
there's not
that
much.
fiat will distort the unit of account. I understand that, but that's just another problem of the state, right? But that doesn't mean that
The thing is,
that
right?
doesn't mean that you no longer have a unit
Rothbard
of
has.
account.
Gee, I'm just going to put you on mute real quick. Let Zulu get his point out, and then I'm happy. I'm happy for this to be a back and forth for a little. I will do want to get to the other hands, but we got to let people exchange rather than just it being a one person jumping in over the top of the other. So Zulu, please go ahead, and then G, you can come back in.
Sure. So yeah, basically, I understand that fiat is going to massively distort. Like, I'm not saying that this is some sort of like ethical primary that you look at how damaging something is, and then that's what the law is about. I'm saying that you can use this as just like a measuring stick, a crude measuring stick to be sure, because it's fiat, but still a measuring stick because you can't access the literal real money damages because of fiat. I understand that totally. But that doesn't mean that fiat is like totally unrelated to what's happening. Right? If there's $20 trillion worth of damage being done in some region, you can clearly see that that's going to be way more destructive than somebody breaking into a Tesco and causing a couple $100 worth of damage.
The real question is how it's related. That's what I'm concerned about, right? Because I mean, Rothbard, he literally set out in Power and Market, right, to lay out how we should analyze intervention, right? Like all these different forms of intervention and everything, right? He laid it all out, and we're not taking it like seriously. Like he stressed that we have to take these kind of things seriously, right? Because we don't want to be we don't want to be, trapping ourselves, right, with these like invalid questions, right? Because if we're stuck trying to answer questions that don't have valid answers, then we're gonna be rationalizing shit, bro. Like we're gonna be collapsing on a bunch of principles, and then shit is gonna spread like a disease, bro. Like the pragmatists.
So again, like there's no dispute here that you should not rationalize or justify what happened in Venezuela, the military action that was taken in Venezuela, for instance, purely on the basis of, well, at least it's not as bad as what happened in Iran.
I'm not
Okay,
saying rationalize that. I'm saying rationalize answers to questions that are invalid because they're not being, they're not like they're asking for a comparison without a valid standard of comparison, right? We're not looking at the right consequences and stuff. Like we're missing all this unseen stuff, right? It's the seen and the unseen. But Rothbard, read Power and Market, bro. The whole way to analyze interventions, all forms of intervention, it's right there.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. Listen, I'm going to thank you. Appreciate the discussion. We're going to have to keep it moving because we do have other people that want to speak. But I will absolutely, if we have time at the end and there's no one else speaking, we can jump back into it because I'm happy to keep getting into this back and forth, but I just don't want to disrespect the time of the other people who want to speak. So thank you for that, G. Really appreciate it. Always good to have you, brother. Let me go to Legion on next, and then we'll hit up Eli and then Pal. But Legion on, please jump in and go ahead.
Is my audio good or is it incomprehensible?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna preface. I don't expect like that there's gonna be some big revolt in the United States or a revolution that's gonna take the government out of power. But I would like to say a few things about that. I think that Trump has, because okay, the state has to justify its wars by instilling fear and confusion in people. So I think Trump has made a really big blunder, and he's kind of trying to justify it because he has said that it's kind of like a concern of national security. They did it because they thought Iran would do it first. And I'm not like a geopolitical expert or anything, but I don't think that there's any possible world in which any of these countries in the Middle East would have initiated a war of aggression against the United States. Impossible. And so, yeah, I think that might lead to a lot of discontentment from the people in the United States.
Yeah, again, like you're right. Like I don't want to start spouting off about stuff that I'm, not well versed enough in to comment. But what I will say is that I've seen again a lot of context as far as basically Trump was trying to. I think I saw a soundbite from Trump where it was like, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks if we hadn't have bombed them just now. Like that was one of his. I mean, he has jumped around to many different justifications for this military intervention. Like so many, it's like it's hard to keep count. But he did definitively say at one point that Iran was going to have a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks if we hadn't have bombed them. Here's the thing. Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon any day now. Seems to be the right-wing neocon version of, we're going to reach peak oil in 5 years, or the sea level is going to rise to dangerous levels in 20 years. The Greta Thunberg talking point where I'm pretty sure she had to delete a tweet like 5 years ago, where she was like, 2020 is going to be, the year where it's irreversible and the climate damage has been done. And 2020 came to pass, and nothing really happened. I mean, apart from COVID, but as far as like environmental stuff, not too much had really significantly changed. But Iran having a nuclear missile any day now seems to be the new version of that. And so that's where, like, look, I'm not going to jump in and say definitively that the Middle East could never have initiated a war of aggression against the United States. We just don't know that for certain. I tend to agree with you that the probability of that is basically approaching zero. And I definitely agree that the idea that Iran was just weeks away or months away or even years away from owning a nuclear weapon and using it to bomb Israel is just completely retarded and not at all based in any kind of fact of the matter, as far as I can tell.
I think
There are
that was probably very hyperbolic of me, but yeah, it's very improbable. It's what I should have said.
there are a couple of things I think which is worth noting on this point. The first is that the now deceased Ayatollah did have a fatwa against nuclear weapons, which is, I don't know how much to trust his fatwas, but it's my understanding that that's pretty important for the Muslims. So if that's the case, like I think they got they did have a lot of fissile material ready, but they weren't actually developing them into nuclear weapons. I think that's the claim which is going on there. Which, if true, I mean, it's like those memes where it's like uncovered 10,000-year-old tablet from Israel claims that Persia is only 2 weeks. Oh, sorry, my phone is going off. Claims that Persia is only 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Like, this has been a thing for many decades now, which I don't think you can trust. But another thing is, I think that's just being used as like kind of a cooked up casus belli. I don't think this is actually, I don't think they necessarily even believe that this is true, because I mean, Iran has been a massive foreign policy goal of the United States for decades at this point. Like, Iran would give them, if they were able to take some sort of foothold in Iran, they would be in a very good position against China and against the Soviet Union, which is now, of course, Russia. They've got like a nice foothold right up there in Asia, and they no longer have to rely on India kind of accepting the US, which, India likes to kind of court both sides. They like their Chinese and they like their US. Both sides kind of want India to be their friend. But if the US has Iran, well, then they've got a very strong position there, and they can also control the Strait of Hormuz. They can get all the oil they want, right? And this is like, some people have theorized. I am sort of partial towards this theory, that the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, if you look at them on a map, you'll notice that they're both nestled right on either side of Iran. Now, if you're into your military strategy, if they had succeeded in both Iraq and Afghanistan, which were concurrent at one point, then they get a real nice pincer movement on Iran. Like, they can just go in from both sides, and you'll see there's like US military personnel all around the Middle East from previous engagements in that area. If they had stayed in Afghanistan, I'm sure they'd be launching attacks from there as well. So I think this is something which the US has been looking for decades, some excuse, some ability to get into a war with Iran. Now, why exactly they want that, I could only ever speculate. But I think it's very clear that they have wanted this for a long, long time.
Yeah, and that's why it's really important. And what you're pointing to is a broader point where you have to factor in that any justification, like public justification, that the US or pretty much any military power gives is all pretextual. Okay, the idea that the Iran has nuclear is weeks away from nuclear weapons. Again, to be clear, I say we, the US had a nuclear deal called the JCPOA with Iran in 2018 that Donald Trump ripped up. Okay, and the contents of that JCPOA, as far as I can recall, was basically that they had strict controls that the US was privy to, as far as, hey, you guys can use this nuclear material you have in your territory, but only for peaceful means. And they had specific mechanisms in place to ensure that took place. Okay. Donald Trump ripped that up. Okay. So to whatever extent that it's possible that Iran was getting closer to a nuclear weapon, it doesn't seem like Trump really helped matters during his first term. But broadly speaking, all of this stuff is just any justification they give is pretextual. Okay, it's because Colonel Gaddafi is just such a bad person to the Libyan people. Like he just was killing so many of them, and the Ayatollah Khamenei was just so evil and killing so many innocent people. It's like, dude, do you know how many despots? If if the US was interested in invading every single country who had a despotic leader that was killing innocent people within its own borders, then the US would be at war with like 80% of the globe at the moment. Like it'd be at war with like every country in Africa, half the countries in like a significant portion potentially of Eastern Europe, a significant portion of Asia, significant portion of South America. Like basically, apart from like a handful of Western democracies, like the US would just be like constantly at war, constantly bombing the vast majority of countries on the planet. So whenever that justification comes up, you've got to remember that that is just purely pretextual. It's a justification for doing what they wanted to do anyway. And so you have to look at the actual causes, as Zulu's doing, where it is potentially a play to control various natural resources and also key, trade routes through like the Hormuz Strait or whatever else. Like that is the proper way to look at things. It's not just, Khomeini was such a freaking asshole, man. Like he was just, killing so many innocent people, and we just got to stop that. It's like, dude, the US doesn't give a shit about brown people being killed by their own leaders, because if they did, we'd be at war with a significantly higher number of countries than what we are right now. I do want to go to Eli next, and then we'll hit up, I think it's Weston Smith, and then we'll go back to you can always change your mind. But Eli, thanks for coming on, man. Please jump in.
I
Please
do
go ahead.
believe Pow might have
Oh,
been
sorry.
there for a while.
Yeah, Zulu, jump in.
No, I just
Sorry,
believe
what
that
was that?
Pow might have been there for a while as well. I'm not entirely
Oh,
certain.
okay, sure. Yeah. Sorry, I did, actually my app wasn't showing his hand up, but now I've refreshed and I can see. So we'll go to Eli first, and then we'll hit up Pow. How about that? So Eli, please jump in, and then we'll go to Pow, and then we'll hit up the rest of the hands.
Yeah, hi. There's a few things that's been said here. It's quite a bit. So I just want to tackle maybe two things. One, in the beginning, we talk about like anti-Zionism. So I'm just curious why the specific like use of that term and like the idea of like the U.S. getting into the war, quote unquote, because of Israel. But now you're kind of backtracking in a sense, saying that the real reason, so it's pretextual, saying like probably it's like we're putting China and Iran at a like disadvantage by controlling the Strait of Hormuz. So my question is it just because you say the word anti-Zionist just as a way to say like like, are you just against states in general? Why not? Why use that specific term or not to say, yeah, the state of Israel? Like, why focus on that? So that would be my number one. And then my number two.
Well, let me tackle this first, and
Go
then
ahead.
we can. So I don't recall using the word anti-Zionist in this specific page. I might have done. I don't recall it, but my analysis of this hasn't been. I mean, it might be a reasonable analysis. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's just that. Well, Israel wanted this, so therefore the US did it. I mean, there has been some comments from Trump. I think Marco Rubio kind of as well, where he was basically like, yeah, Israel was going to bomb this place anyway, so they kind of forced our hand, and we had to jump in as well, which was kind of a weird thing to admit. But like, are you saying that I was wrong to, or that like what's kind of your point there? I suppose.
My issue is it's the listen, I am 100% like I agree with like a lot of the stuff, like I'm against the state and stuff like that. But to single out by using like the word anti-Zionist, which means a Jewish state, right? Where you could just say also this Israel or whatever it is kind of weird to use that term when it's such a loaded kind of like, I don't want to say, but like dog whistle tend to be for like anti-Semitic sentiment. And then the problem is that I'm kind of like pointing out here is if we actually look at the reasons why like they would actually bomb Iran and let's say Trump tearing up the agreement, is because if you look at it, Iran is the number one top state sponsor of terrorism. So why would we cut them a quote unquote blank check, even if they're going to go use their fissile material for quote unquote peaceful means? What's stopping them from taking that money and just funneling it into more terrorism, more things like that? So there's just a few things that, like, regarding geopolitics, those are the two things. And then the singling out and the term of use is anti-Zionism or whatever like that, to kind of like single out Israel when you could have just also said like the Israel state. It's just interesting to me just to use that specific word when it's usually like a slight dog whistle.
So to be clear, when I say anti-Zionist, I mean, or when I say Zionism, I'm referring to specifically support for the state of Israel. So maybe that's not the most accurate term to use. I'm not sure. The context that I've known for the use of the word anti-Zionist has always been with respect to specifically being against the actions of the state of Israel. If that's not the case, then I'll start referring to it purely as being against the actions of the state of Israel. But no, it's not a dog whistle towards anti-Semitism or anything. My personal opinion with respect to Israel is basically that, like, yeah, it's an unjustified state, the same as any other state that exists. I don't consider it to be uniquely evil in any in any particular respect. Like, yeah, maybe there's some pretty heavily aggressive things that it's doing against the West Bank and Gaza, but it doesn't seem to me to be the case that Israel is some uniquely evil force in geopolitics, unlike the United States or unlike any other, state. Again, all states are aggressive to some degree, and it doesn't seem to me to be the case that, like, what Israel is doing right now is unlike what another state would do if it was in a similar circumstance to what Israel is in right now. So that's why I don't consider Israel to be uniquely evil, despite what it's doing right now to be, I perceive to be, pretty abhorrent in some respects. But no, I don't consider, I don't think it's like a uniquely Jewish thing, and I don't think it's like a thing that's unique to Israel per se. It just happens to be that Israel is the one that's doing these sort of things at the moment because of the circumstances that it finds itself in, or the circumstances that it's helped create. So I don't know. That's kind of
And
my
like just look
take
at
on Israel.
our intellectual forebears, who both me and Monhop have enormous amounts of respect and love for. We've got Murray Rothbard, possibly the most Jewish man you could ever find. He's just like any other New York Jew. We've got Ayn Rand. I believe her actual name was Alyssa Rosenbaum. Yeah, guess which ethnicity she might belong to. Like there's a hell of a lot. Walter Block, who even though he has some positions I would reject, he's still very much an influence on some of my thinking. He's a big old Jew. I don't accept this kind of charge of anti-Semitism against us.
No, I'm not making a charge against anti-Semitism. I'm saying by using that word, like, for example, listen, Karl Marx was a Jew and he also created the worst thing on the planet, communism. Like, it has nothing to do that. It doesn't matter like who you quote unquote support and this thing. I'm not saying that you guys are being anti-Semitic. What I'm saying is the very definition of like Zionism is a Jewish state, which implies already an ethnicity and religion, right? So by using, you're not just saying the state of Israel, you're saying these people should not have quote unquote a state, which sure, but like if they were to have, let's say, a Jewish Liechtenstein or whatever you guys call it, then there wouldn't be a problem, right? You wouldn't say, oh, I'm anti like Liechtenstein or whatever it's called,
Well,
right? You
no,
wouldn't say
I'm
that.
still anti. Like Liechtenstein's like closer to the ideal, but I'm still anti-Liechtenstein. It's still a state. I mean, if the definition of Zionism incorporates the existence of a state into it, then I'm an anti-Zionist because I'm anti-state. So
Sure, yeah.
so I still don't like. Maybe there's a dog whistle involved from some. I get what you mean as far as there's a lot of people out there who try and smuggle in some, stereotypes or anti-Semitic views. Like they try and get them through the sally port and use these kind of covert terms. Okay, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm being very, very specific here and very, very transparent. I'm an
Sure.
anti-Zionist because I'm anti-state.
Sure, yeah.
The same as I'm anti-US government. And if there was a term to describe the US government the same way Zionism describes a Jewish state, then I
Correct.
would use that term too.
And that's my point, is there is no other really term. This term was made because the word Jewish is incorporated within the definition. And that's why I say it's like kind of like a dog whistle, where you could just say, yeah, I'm anti-Israel, anti-America, place, anti this. It's just that specific word is like uniquely created for that purpose. Like as you know, just like you said, you don't know any other word that is uniquely that describes, let's say, America as like you just say anti-America, right? It's a very unique word. That's what I'm just trying to say. Is that
I do believe that Casimir, who's been on this show before, I believe he describes himself as a libertarian Zionist. Now, I'm not sure exactly what his position on that is, but I think you could take Zionism to mean that there should be a Jewish homeland in that area, which doesn't necessarily carry those connotations.
sure,
But to be clear,
that's a fair point.
the term Zionist was developed by pro-Zionists. Okay, it's not
No,
like
I'm
the term.
aware.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, you know, if it seemed like, well, if you're aware, then it seems odd to me that you would then be like, you know, don't use this term that's like negatively loaded against Jewish people. And, you know, it seems like the claim is that, you know, the Jewish people are being treated differently because there was this specific term created to denote the existence of an ethnically Jewish state when there hasn't been one for, you know, an American state or like a European state. But
Sure,
the term was developed
contextually,
by Jewish people who are supportive of a Jewish homeland or a Jewish state.
yeah,
So
but
it seems like a
contextually,
weird thing to then be like, well, you know, if you're going to use this term, just so you know, like it's got anti-Semitic loading to it. It's like, well, no,
well,
it
yeah,
doesn't.
because well, it kind of does. Okay, so contextually, the reason why this term came up was during World War II, and obviously the prosecution of Jewish people and Jewish ancestry or whatever it is. So there was like a real focus on identity on that aspect. So they said, okay, we'll come up with a term. We want to come up like with something to like solidarity wise, where I just completely disagree with identity politics in general, but it was a sense of like a rallying call to say, hey, this is for this, right? For sure. But as you know, the uses of words, I'm not saying that necessarily the definition, but the use of the word can change and have negative connotations, right? Like just because it back then it didn't have a negative connotation doesn't mean today it doesn't have a negative connotation to it. You understand? It would be
No, I get that.
unfair
I
to
think
use.
but I don't think the reason that I think people have continued to use the term that was historically used by people who were pro-Zionists or just Zionists. You probably just call them Zionists rather than pro-Zionists. Um, has been used. So the Zionists developed the term Zionism to denote their support for a specific state of affairs with respect to Israel or the existence of a Jewish state. And then people who didn't support that Jewish state for one reason or another started being like, well, if they're Zionists, then I guess I'm an anti-Zionist, like I'm the negation of that position. So, like, yeah,
Yeah, and
again, I'm not going to dispute the idea that, you know, there's a lot of people who hold anti-Semitic views who are also anti-Zionist. I mean, that would kind of go hand in hand. Like, if you were anti-Semitic, you'd probably also be anti-Zionist. Okay, that doesn't mean that anti-Zionism is forever sullied by that fact that people are going to call themselves anti-Zionist because they're also anti-Semitic.
oh no, I'm not conflating the two. Obviously, that's why I just say like when, for example, like the rhetoric I would say that's being used, like for example, let's say by the Groypers, like no matter, let's say, even if, let's say, America and Israel have a deal, whether that deal is valid or not because they're states, beyond the point, would be, okay, I'm gonna help this guy. Oh, the only reason why they're helping them is because they're Jewish, right? That's my point. Is that I'm not saying that you guys are doing that. I'm just saying when we talk about certain current events and stuff like that, it is prudent, I would say, to like be mindful of that aspect. And I'm not saying like we need to police our words or stuff like that. What I'm more saying is that currently, like if, for example, some type of term were to change that is innocuous in some aspects and became very negative, you would like, well, from now on, let's say everybody 100% believed, like, you know, that calling yourself a walker means that you like want to stab running people, for example. Doesn't mean that's the really the case or not. And obviously, you also look at the person's actions to consider that. I'm just saying when we conflate kind of both, like for the avid listener, for the average midwit, that's easily be like, oh yeah, it's because they're Jewish. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I think I want to kind of keep it moving and get to the next hand. So we'll have to leave it there. I guess to tie a bow on it, like it seems like basically the claim is that it's contextual. Okay, it's going to be like how you take someone saying they're anti-Zionist is going to be contextual to their other views. If someone's like, well, I'm an anti-Zionist because I really hate those darn bankers and those hooked-nosed individuals with the three brackets around the term. It's like, okay, this guy's an anti-Zionist because of a very, very specific reason. Whereas when myself or Zulu might refer to ourselves as anti-Zionist, again, like, to get back to the original, I don't actually recall using the term anti-Zionist during this discussion, but maybe I did. But if Zulu or myself refers to ourselves with that term, the context of that is, well, we believe that Zionism implies a Jewish state, and I'm anti-state, so therefore I'm anti-Zionist. So that is, I think, yeah, context matters, and that's all fine. But yeah, look, appreciate it, Eli. I want to go to,
I
I
do have
said
a
Cal
super
next, so we'll go to
chat
Cal.
to
Oh,
go
sorry.
through.
What was that? Sorry, Zulu?
I've got a super chat came in.
Oh, yeah, cool.
That's from the Lazy Faye for $20 US. Thank you very much. Who says, regrettably, many otherwise no foreign wars conservatives seem to be fine with these conflicts so long as A, Trump is doing it, he's a man's man, and B, we're winning. Yeah, which is just ties into sort of the MAGA cult, which I do think is a cult. It's pretty undeniable at this point, where Trump can literally do whatever the hell he wants, and they will just go along with the flow, right? These people, they don't have a philosophy. They're just, oh, whatever Trump says, that's the guy I support. And this is the case for vast majority of voters. They just vote down the party line, whoever the incumbent is. They don't give a shit about anything else. For these MAGA people, if Trump's doing it, then it's good. And the evidence that it's good is Trump's doing it. Trump can literally say he's going to be the peace candidate and say, see, look how great Trump is. Trump can then go to war.
He could shoot a guy on Fifth Avenue and no one would care, right?
Yeah, they don't give a shit, and they never will give a shit.
Right, and I will get to the rest of the hands, but just on that point, because this is something that I've talked about before recently. I don't think I actually might have said it on this platform or on YouTube at all. I think I left it in a comment on X, so I might bring it up now. Basically, like, what the genuine anti-war people, like the true principled libertarians who oppose war on principled grounds, are going to have to reckon with, is that the right became anti-war recently because they were losing wars. Like, the reason why, American right-wingers developed like this anti-interventionist slant to their worldview was because America was getting its ass kicked by goat farmers in the middle of fucking, Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay. If the America had gone in and, the counterfactual world where America goes in and gets a swift victory, again, there's probably an unrealistic worldview in hindsight, but let's just roll with it for the sake of argument. If America had gone into Iraq and gone into Afghanistan and completely overtaken the place in weeks, none of these people would be against it. Okay, but we still would be because we're anti-interventionists and we're anti-state. Okay, so you got to realize that the right-wing anti-interventionist, anti-war worldview was not built upon some principled opposition to meddling in the affairs of the Middle East, or some principled opposition to bombing children's playgrounds in some third world country. Okay, that was never the opposition. The opposition was, this makes America look bad on the global stage, and we want to win. We don't want to lose. We want to win. So as soon as Trump was able to go into Venezuela and get what he was able to justify as a win, because minimal casualties, minimal harm to America, and this huge win of taking out some anti-American socialist. These people were full-throated in their support of it because America won. Okay, so again, that is the worldview through which these people look. It's not through a worldview of, hey, what's the principled stance on this with respect to the actual things that are being done? It's, is America winning or not? If America's winning the conflict, then it's good. If America's losing the conflict, then it's bad. And America got its ass kicked in the Middle East for 20 years. So these people convinced themselves and were able to convince other people that they were actually principally anti-interventionists when they never really were.
I do have just one more short super chat. This one's not going to cause a discussion before we move on to the next hand. It's from Jeff Hamilton for $2 Canadian. Thank you very much. And he's asking when the next video is coming out. So I'm doing a collaboration with Taxed Brass at the moment. That's pretty much wrapped up. I'm not sure how it's looking on his end though. So we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. And I'm also working on a video on Pluribus, my analysis of Pluribus. I'm going to try and get all the scripting completely done over the weekend so that I can record in the coming week and then get it nice and edited together for you, hopefully quite soon. It's not going to be a huge video or anything, so hopefully I can strike when the iron's hot there. But yeah, please continue.
No 3.5 hour analysis of Pluribus. Damn. We'll go to Power next, and then we'll hit up Weston Smith. But Power, please jump in, man. Please go ahead.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So I guess something about this war, and I guess the general critique of libertarians who supported Trump in the last election, is I generally don't. I have the view that voting is kind of pointless to bring about libertarian change. I think there's other things we can do that are more effective. And I kind of don't really care about like libertarian infighting when it comes to supporting political candidates, like in general. So I guess it's kind of because I kind of view voting as a form of aggression.
So I wouldn't say voting is a form of aggression. I think the analogy that most often gets used that I think is a valid one is voting for a state official is similar to voting for which slave owner you're going to have on the plantation. Like if that was a choice that like slaves had during pre-Civil War America, then I wouldn't say that, hey, like this guy's only going to beat me like twice a day, where this guy's will beat me 4 times a day. Like if you make that calculus and you're like, yeah, I'm going to vote for the guy that's only going to beat me twice a day, that would be a perfectly valid thing, and it wouldn't be an endorsement of that beating. It would just be, hey, like I have this option in front of me to lessen the degree to which I'm aggressed against. I'm going to take it. So I don't think that voting is aggression. I will say, and maybe I don't know whether this is something that Zul and I disagree on, but it might be. I think it depends on whether it's worth it to vote and throw your lot in with a state official is dependent on the voting system that you have in place in a particular region. So the problem for the US is because it has a first past the post winner take all system in place in the majority of states with respect to like federal elections, like presidential elections. The ability for you to vote for a candidate and even shift the outcome at all is extremely limited because of the incentives at play. And so, for instance, there's a median voter theorem where basically both candidates are going to try to appeal towards the middle, like the median voter, whether the median voter is a large portion or a tiny portion of the population. So that is just not going to, like, for that reason, it under the specific systems the United States has in place, it's not going to really bring about all that much change. Now, whether that's the reason why you're voting or not, like that could be dependent as well. Like it'd be worth throwing in your lot with, like, if Thomas Massey was the presidential candidate, I'd say, yeah, vote for him. But if it's going to be a marginal difference, then I don't think it's really worth it. However, in a system like Australia, where it's preferential voting, where you can influence the election with your, like, enough people can influence the election and get minor and smaller parties actually into positions of authority within the government, then I think that there's a pretty compelling argument that, like, yeah, you should, again, show up to the ballot and, vote 1 libertarian and vote 2 for the next best party and so on and so forth, and and then vote last for the least libertarian party. Excuse me. I think under that system where there's different incentives at play, then it's potentially, worthwhile doing. But broadly speaking, I don't consider voting to be aggression. Did you want to jump back in on that, or maybe Power can come back in, and then we'll go to Zulu, or Zulu can jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I can go, or you can go if you want, but
Sure,
Power, you go.
I did want to comment on just one thing there. Obviously, I've given my reasons why I think and when I think voting is a valid strategy, which is basically just libertarian Leninism by Springton of Nations. So I believe they got it from Rothbard. Great series on YouTube if you want to go watch that. But I do want to comment on one thing you said there where you don't really get or approve of the infighting with respect to voting. So my infighting with, for instance, Dave Smith and the Neoprags was never that they just voted for Donald Trump. Whatever, vote for whoever you want. It really doesn't matter a whole lot. But it was that they were giving these full-throated endorsements of Trump and everything he stood for, and the problems. My problem was with the underlying premises, which led them to that. It's not just that they voted for him; it's that they really wanted to bring him in for false premises, for false reasons. They were in love with Trump, and indeed still now. Austin Padgett, who is Angela McArdle's wife, he's still loving Trump.
You just said that Austin was Angela McArdle's wife.
Yeah, I know. I did it deliberately.
You did it on purpose. Okay.
Yeah. These people, they're still loving Trump even after everything's done. I think that's because the premises imply that. At least Dave Smith did eventually admit his mistake there. But I'm not sure he really understands the underlying premises which drove him to that mistake.
Right, but I guess my more general point is I guess it's like libertarians caring about voting as a political or as a strategy to bring about libertarian change is kind of like a faulty premise. Like I kind of, because it's not like most people you're going to get elected are going to be like if you get an anarcho-capitalist who's running on a platform to abolish the state, then yeah, it's like voting for that would be a preferential vote because you're going to get the outcome which leads to non-aggression. But if you vote for somebody who might, let's say, lower taxes by 10%, but then like basically make laws that put you into a totalitarian like police state, it's like that's like lowering aggression in one area to raise it up in another. And it's like I don't even like, I kind of just view democracy kind of as a pointless system to try to reform or try to work from to get change.
So it's not so much that like, you know, we expect that you're just going to vote your way into anarcho-capitalism. That's not really. So one part of the analysis is that like voting is such a low opportunity cost activity. It's like, hey, you show up. I mean, sometimes you don't even have to show up these days because of mail-in ballots, but like it takes a couple of hours out of your life to show up and you know, cast a ballot. And so that's why it's just such a low opportunity cost activity that where it's like, hey, you know, it's not really, you're not devoting that much time to it. So we're not really going to like, you know, strongly oppose doing it because it's like, hey, like it costs very, very minimal. I know value is subjective, but you know, bear with me. But like broadly, I mean, look, you know, Argentina got Javier Milei through elections. And now look, there's some strong views about Javier Milei and how good he's actually been for Argentina. Obviously, he has some views about Israel, which are quite strong. And he's been far from perfect. He hasn't been like a perfectly principled anarcho-capitalist. I'm not going to dispute that. But like, if there was a Javier Milei like an archetype coming up in the US, then I would expect, and he was like had a genuine chance of winning, then I would expect every libertarian to want to vote for him, despite the fact that he's not perfect. But yeah, I think my opinion on voting is like, look, it's such a low cost activity that, like, yeah, sure, show up and cast your ballot, and I don't think that it necessarily contains within it an endorsement of total endorsement of whichever candidate you cast your ballot for, unless you've actually publicly made those endorsements, like what Dave Smith and others in the Liberty Movement did for Trump prior to voting for him.
Right, and I do get that, like, endorsing a candidate, especially one who was campaigning on aggression, on increasing the size of the police state, on increasing taxation. I think like endorsing a candidate like that is like obviously should be viewed, it should be frowned upon. But it's like even if a candidate would be like I think like your typical like right-wing candidate would be like, oh, I'll lower taxes a bit, I'll lower regulations a bit, but like I'll pass stricter laws. It's like you're still increasing like some form of statism, and it's like I really don't view voting in that regard as like I'd personally like to see more. It's like I'm not someone who's going to break the laws. It's like if the police state does increase, it's not going to affect me, but it's still aggression, and it's like I don't know. I kind of view as working within the democratic system as flawed strategy, because I think there's ways you can get change outside of voting that help move liberty forward better, you know?
Sure. Zilla, did you want to come back in on that at all?
No, but I do have a couple of super chats to go over if you're done with that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate where you're coming from, pal. I totally get what you mean, and I have at times endorsed that kind of view that voting is just totally pointless. But I think there is a more nuanced view that we can take on it with respect to certain situations where it's advantageous to engage in it. But no, I appreciate you coming up. We'll go to Zulu's super chats and then we'll come to the next hands. But appreciate you, pal. Thanks for coming up.
Sure. So the first one is from Hoop Crow for 2,200. I believe that is pesos. Thank you very much. Thank you for the good content, Zulu. Have my money. Well, very much appreciated. And then we got $10 from the Lazy Fae, second donation of the stream, I believe. Thank you very much. I still disdain leftist astroturfing in libertarian spaces since the Trump admin took power. I mentioned it previously, but the ones saying we should have supported the other statists, great, indeed, yeah. It's this is what you get with these culture warriors. It's the Prags versus the Neo-Prags. They're both wrong in the exact same way. We're given the choice between, pardon me, either you're going to support like the Reason Cato type candidate, or you're going to support the Neo-Prag candidate. And it's like, well, there's actually a third option here. You can not get embroiled in the culture war. That's entirely possible. And then there's one from Kitten the Boss, 27.96 for $10. Thank you very much. Who's saying, metaphorically, is it possible for a fiat libertarian to be traded for gold or silver? Well, hopefully that's what my celebritarian video was would achieve. Oust some of those people and get in some better people. And then the final one from Kid Friendly Gamer, 34.51 for £5. Thank you very much. Who's asking, what vape flavor is your favorite? I don't really have necessarily a favorite. I just have whatever's available, really. I avoid certain flavors, of course, if I find them disgusting. But I'm not too picky. But then, just as I say that, Hubei 98.78.9 for 65 SEK. I'm not entirely sure what that currency is, but thank you very much. Who's saying, I'm being conscripted to the army. Swedish kroner, okay. I'm being conscripted to the army, but I want to join. Am I doing nothing wrong, or should I tell them to, presumably I don't want to join. Am I doing nothing wrong, or should I tell them to fuck themselves, even though you do want to join, even though I consent? Well, I mean, it's conscription, so ultimately, it definitely removes the aggressive part of it. But I think you shouldn't want to join. You should want to find gainful employment outside of the state apparatus. So I think you should tell them to fuck themselves. Obviously, take into account what that would entail. Like, would you get arrested? Would you be, like, fined? There could be consequences for, like, ignoring conscription. So, take into account your own life, what that would entail. I'm not saying you should always resist the state to the maximum extent possible. I mean, obviously, I still pay taxes, even though I don't want to pay taxes. I wouldn't tell HMRC to go fuck themselves. I would definitely pay because I don't want to be arrested and put in jail. That's you gotta look at it that way. But yeah, thank you everyone for the money, and we can get back to the show.
Yeah, just quickly, I do want to correct the record. It was not 65 Swedish krona. It was actually 65 Samuel Edward Konkens. So he donated 65 of those to Zulu's bank account. So he'll now be a super agorist as a result of this. But I'll go to Weston Smith next, and then we'll hit up Sue. But Weston Smith, thank you for being so patient. Please jump in.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I have two questions and then maybe a follow-up. First question, how can private defense agencies handle the verification of sensitive intel? So like, for example, if the CIA can say something like, oh, well, Iran was plotting X, and then they ask, okay, well, where's your source? How can we verify this to know that you didn't just make up an excuse? And they say, oh, well, my source is confidential. If I verify the intel, people are going to die, so I can't give up my source.
I don't really know, to be quite frank.
So I would say this is definitely this is definitely like an engineering problem. It's a problem to solve out in the market. Now I think you could prove it in other ways. At least you should definitely seek to do that. You don't necessarily have to give up your source, but you could go like, hey, look, these are the documents that my source was able to acquire. I'm not going to tell you who the source was, though. But yeah, I would consider it an engineering problem. I'm not sure how exactly to solve that out in every single case. And there is no general answer there, I would say.
And I would also say that, I mean, could also just do independent verification. So, like, if someone is coming to you with some kind of anonymous source being like, hey, this is like going down in Iran or whatever, and you're like what are we talking about? Like some defense agency that would act on behalf of people to, carry out, in a hypothetical ANCAP society and carry out these like military interventions in a justified NAP compliant way. It would seem to me prudent that in order for that, that institution to become successful, or that company to become successful, I should say, that they would have become very, very adept at independently verifying whatever claims or tip-offs are coming through in order to ensure that they're not, carrying out aggressions against people and, imposing significant costs unnecessarily on their customers. So it seems to me that, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, AB ANCAP did just mention in chat that there's such a thing as a zero knowledge proof in computer science, and that could be applied here. And yeah, if you have some way you could work that out, then that could definitely apply.
But yeah, look, ultimately, this is just going to be us kind of like spitballing about how this could potentially work, which, to be clear, I don't necessarily hate doing that. It just has to be taken with a grain of salt, where it's like, hey, we're not the central planners. We're not going to be able to tell you for certain, but like,
Can I say something?
ideas. Yeah, we'll go. Well, I want
Just
to
like quickly in response for an answer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Like, I mean, if there's a sale involved, right, then there's a contract involved, and then there could be stipulations involved. Like, also if, the person is just putting their credibility on the line too, right?
So, for example, so what you're saying is like
past history of credibility too.
Yeah. So G, like what you'd be saying is like, hey, I will sell you this information, and the premise being that, like, I only get paid if the information turns out to be true. Is that like kind of like the general kind of gist of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. Like, you would want that kind of stipulation, right?
Yeah. So if I'm a defense agency and, I take tips from people and it's like, hey, I'll pay you out. It's similar to a bounty, right? Like, hey, I'll pay you out if this tip turns out to be accurate and we end up getting the outcome that we desire from the perspective of our clients. If your info turns out to be bad, then you're going to be paying us a fee, or at the very least, you don't get paid, and we won't trust you again. That kind of thing. So the incentive there is to provide reliable information if you want to get paid, and also if you want to.
Right. We always want to have like, I mean, we always want to have contracts, right? That's why we want to have contracts.
For sure, absolutely. No, totally get it. Let's go to Sue next, and then we'll go to you can always change your mind. Sue, please jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can I say something about Iran, if that's okay? Going back to the Iran topic.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to say something about Iran topic that like a little bit goes unnoticed. I do think it is right now the most important and the most evil thing that is happening, and all libertarians should be talking about it. because I actually disagree with what you said earlier, which is why I wanted to talk. The U.S. never lost in the Middle East. Every single goal the U.S. and Israel wanted to achieve in the Middle East, they have done. What did they want? The first goal is for Israel to become a regional hegemon in the area, and the second one is Israel. America's real power comes from the world's currency, the U.S. dollar. America, if a country doesn't accept US dollar as like the main currency for their commodities, that causes America to lose power. And it also works in a way like the more countries you include in the system, the less likely that the system is going to crash, which the system is inevitably going to crash because if you know Austrian economics, you know how monetary policies work. So weirdness. So in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, they all achieved their goals. The goal was to take down the anti-Israel government so Israel could continue being like a regional hegemon. And the goal was to make sure that the oil exchange trades in dollar currency, not in non-dollar currencies. Now these countries refuse to trade in dollar. They want to use other currencies, which is why like they really got taken down. And right now they're about to be successful in Iran. And we see this like horrible war happening all because like they engage in this enforced US dollar system, so the America keeps lending money in US dollar, which is main power. And we see people like Angela McArdle, which is like this is against libertarian monetary policies, this is against human rights. Like they killed like what 166 children in front of all of our eyes. They killed them. They died collapsing under a building. Like it's like the most horrible massacre someone can think of. You see people like Angela McArdle, they're still like cooking for fucking Donald Trump. And then you see these like so-called like free market human rights organizations such as like ARI and some objectivist institutions. It's like they're celebrating the death of like children and the destruction of countries. And that's why I think like this is the most main topic. Like there are these countries constantly waging war against others, always winning at the cost of like lies and enforce like monetary policies. And like I feel like we're not like attacking these like so-called like libertarians or I don't know objectivists like enough hard time for the evils they have
Yeah.
personally sported. That was my rant.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you, Sue. I get what so I'll clarify. When I say that the US, like the US was losing, I mean from the perspective of the person that isn't taking the cynical and probably accurate view that this was all about, as you said, keeping the US dollar as the global reserve currency, keeping US access and keeping that regional hegemony in the
Yeah.
Middle East. When I say it was a failure, I mean from the perspective of like some, you know, run of the mill like layman in the US that just wants to see the US, win wars as far as like a military defeat, if you get what I mean. So that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
where I'll
okay.
clarify it.
It's more like this, like, can like smaller organizations like attack against the big dude type of shit. Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to add that like it's not going to end with Iran. They're going to come up with a new enemy. It's going to be one of the Gulf Arab countries. It's going to be Turkey. They're going to attack any country that refuses to increase their debt to GDP ratio. America's debt to GDP ratio is right now 125%, and that is insanity. Like it's insanity. That number is crazy. That's also something no one is talking about. But there are countries in the Middle East, their debt to GDP ratio is like 15%, 20, which is like way lower. These countries are going to be the next step. Like it's not a conspiracy theory. Like they're already trying to manufacture consent for it. And like libertarians should like constantly talk about this because these are the most evil things we can think of that is like constantly happening right in front of us. And nobody's holding accountable. We're not even capable of holding like fucking Angela McArdle or people like that accountable. That like supposed to be our allies. Or like
Sure.
like Yaron Brook. Like Yaron, I'm pretty sure that guy gets paid by like Israeli businessmen.
No, well, here's what I'll say though: is I think that like your key underlying point, which is that this is all built upon the US needing to maintain its status as the global reserve currency and needing to maintain a status as a regional hedge with a regional hegemony. I think that is, as you said, an under-discussed topic, and it's partially under-discussed because so much of like the anti-war movement has just become like anti-Israel slop, where it's just like Israel bad, Israel bad, Israel bad. And again, to be clear, what they're doing is bad. I'm not disputing that for a second, but I think that it's like they belie the point that like this is more fundamental than that, and there's actually other incentives at play, and it's why you should be hugely, hugely skeptical of any presidential candidate like Donald Trump, who's going to claim to be some kind of isolationist with respect to not only military or not only foreign policy, but free trade. Like they're going to be protectionist, and they're not going to they're going to impose like hefty tariffs and whatnot on foreign countries. If that person isn't coming in and being like, yeah, and we're also going to get off fiat money, like that's just not going to happen, because like if their fundamental view is we still want to maintain like a Federal Reserve and maintain fractional reserve banking and maintain a fiat currency, then this is the sort of thing like what's happening with Iran that you need to do in order to keep that system afloat and prevent it from collapsing.
Exactly. Like there is no way we can continue the current monetary system and not have wars. There is no US president that will stop wars. First of all, to become a president, you have to be a pragmatist. Like the current system we have, it rewards pragmatism. And if you're an actual principled person, you won't become successful as a politician in the first place. Like it's nearly impossible. It probably takes an incredibly intelligent person to hold up your principles and still become a president. That's the first thing. The second thing is exactly what you said. The current system requires wars to continue. Like we cannot stop wars until this like monetary policy changes. But like I don't even know how would that happen. But yeah, that's all.
Well, and part of it is because the US needs to. So Peter Schiff talks about this a lot. Where basically, because he was obviously, he's libertarian adjacent. I mean, he'd probably call himself a libertarian, and he probably is, to be fair. Like, he's not an ANCAP, I don't think, but he's pretty good on a lot of stuff, and specifically, he's very good on economics, except for like he really hates Bitcoin for whatever reason. But I guess he's a gold bug, and he's got a lot of money tied up in gold, so I guess that makes sense as far as his incentives. But he's still got some good stuff to say, and one of the things he was talking about when this whole tariff thing kicked off like a while back was like, look, the US has been able to prop up its economy and not like been in these like perpetual like business cycle. Like it is in a business cycle, but these like the business cycles have been slower and less, devastating over longer periods of time because of the US's status as the global reserve currency and its ability to export inflation to other countries, because countries will literally buy the US dollar and like literally they will exchange resources and send them to the United States just in exchange for literally just the paper currency. Like, think about how insane that is. Like, the currency is just supposed to be a unit of account where it describes exchange ratios between products. People like other countries are literally willing to send goods to the United States just in exchange for having US dollars in their bank accounts. And that is how the US is able to prop up its current economy, because they're able to export inflation and import like actual goods. And so that's why Trump's tariff policy was completely fucking insane, was because it was destroying the very thing that's propping up the US economy, which is its ability to import goods in exchange for just, hey, here's some US dollars for you to have, you're welcome, I guess. So yeah, look, I want to keep moving through the hands, but Sue, did you want to, finish off on anything at all?
No, that's all. Thank you.
No, appreciate it. Hey, Zula, did you want to jump in at all on anything, or?
Nope, I'm good.
Sweet, cool. We'll go to You Can Always Change Your Mind next, and then we'll hit up the rest of the hands. But thanks for jumping in, brother. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I assume many of you remember the video by Leonard Peikoff where he talks about Iran. So I'm just curious, like what is his position on the events currently happening in Iran? Is he very much is he for it or against it, or what's his opinion?
I mean, he would almost certainly be for it. And for those who don't know, here's this clip from Fox News brought him on to kind of, justify the Iraq war. And the host he was a little bit skeeved out by just how radical Leonard Peikoff was being. Peikoff,
bearing in mind that the host in question is Bill O'Reilly, who was like an arc neocon on Fox News in like peak neocon days in the early 2000s. So for this host to be skeeved out was pretty wild.
Yeah, so like basically Peikoff's position, some people misinterpret it slightly as him being for nuking Iran. But like he was basically saying like, well, we shouldn't be in Iraq. We should go straight to the source, Iran, right? He says that if it was determined by the military leaders that that was the way to oust the Iranian regime, that you would have to nuke it, then he would be okay with it, right? He isn't per se for it, but like that is I'm not sure what his current viewpoint on this war is. Obviously, the guy's like a million years old, so I'm not sure if he's obviously not like doing daily videos or anything. But I assume you could probably ask like Jim Valiant about that or something. He'd probably know what Peikoff's position is. I imagine he hasn't changed his mind on that. He's probably for this war, which I mean that I point out in the video, Anarcho-Capitalism Responding to the Critics, like their faulty premises on this count and how they come to their pro-war views, which it is consistent with their more primary premises. So I'm not entirely expecting that to change unless they become ANCAPs. Which I did see that Michael Leibowitz made a video recently saying why he doesn't call himself an objectivist, and someone was in the comments joking, saying that, well, he's not an objectivist because he realized being an objectivist means you have to be an ANCAP, and he's not an ANCAP, so that's why he's not an objectivist anymore.
Cool. I'm also wondering what is government debt? I heard Sue mention that. Who do they owe money to? I'm not like good on this, so
I think it's bonds mostly, but I mean, Sue, if she wants to come in, can definitely clarify on the government debt point.
Oh, sorry, I was eating. What was the question?
He asked who the government owes debt to.
Oh, yeah, bonds, and to itself and to other countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
To bombs? You mean
like
bonds.
Lockheed Martin? Oh, bonds.
BONDS.
What is
So
bond,
the thing is that America can lend to itself and other countries as much as it wants because it's the issues or the currencies, and when it comes to repayment, it can just print money. But this has consequences. But this does give America insane geopolitical power and domestic power, so they want to keep doing this. On top of that, there's like the top power that comes from using dollar as the currency in trade, gives them power. And another thing is that you can't afford trade deficits if you hold this currency and lending and borrowing power. And most countries cannot afford having trade deficits.
To be clear, bombs is also probably the correct answer in some respects, because a lot of these government bonds get issued in order for the US to then be able to pay Lockheed Martin to, build their next fighter jet for $300 trillion.
Yeah, so basically it's an aggression to invest in bonds, then, right?
It's a good question. I mean, so if I'm a private investor and someone comes like, hey, if I go to the government and hey, I'm going to borrow some money I'm going to lend the money to the government in exchange for interest. It's probably contextual, because a lot of these people are going to be net taxpayers. So in some respect, if they're collecting interest off that, that's just paying off their some of the money that's been taken from them. So maybe I'm not 100% sure, but it could be contextual. You could justify it in that sense. It's hey, I'm collecting interest on this payment, but hey, look at all this money that's been stolen from me. So some of that is just a repayment for that. Although whether it's a smart way to try and recoup that money, I mean, government bonds are pretty low yield typically. So whether you're even beating inflation is probably up in the air in some respects. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's per se aggression. It could be, but I don't know.
I will say that Warren Buffett, his investment advice is 80% long-term government bonds. So presumably it does beat inflation if fucking Warren Buffett is saying it. But I will say I think it's a very bad idea to buy government bonds, because literally tomorrow the United States government could say, yep, we're not paying back any of that money, and really you're not even owed anything. You're taking a loan from the government.
That's what the Confederates did. Because of patriotism, Confederates kept telling people, you should buy government bonds to help us with the war, with our justice fight. So all the rich people, all the slave owners started buying government bonds, Confederate bonds. And then the war happened, and we know the end of that war. And they were all brokies in the end, because the Confederates didn't exist. So they're you're never getting that money back, bro.
Yeah, and that's why My current investment strategy is I've got a fairly diversified stock portfolio, but vast majority of my investment is in Bitcoin. Every week I have a Bitcoin purchase that goes through no matter what. I'm not sitting there trying to day trade Bitcoin. I think that's ridiculous. Just put your money into it, and that's like my retirement fund basically.
Not gold.
I do have some silver, but gold. The advice I heard was that you shouldn't really be buying gold unless you're paying in like tens of thousands, and I wasn't buying that much, so I went with silver. Because the only reason I'd want to go for gold is because it's just difficult to store that much silver. I've not got very much silver, but as it turns out, it has massively appreciated in value since I purchased it.
Yeah, it's like $100 now. Silver is.
We should start an investment strategy podcast. That would go really well.
We do have to say I'm not a financial advisor. Disclaimer: I'm not a financial advisor. I don't want to get sued. I'm not advising you on how to spend your money. It's your money. Spend it however you want. I'm just telling you what I do.
It's illegal to suggest like financial advices, right? They actually hold you
Yeah,
legally
I could
liable for
literally
that.
get sued for that if I don't have that disclaimer in there.
And on that note, I'm going to advise everyone to invest all of their money in Dogecoin. And if it goes to zero, then don't blame me.
I was, this is a podcast, so I do want to go on a little bit of a tangent on that. I saw this tweet earlier where it was talking about how like some guy pretended to have like a meth overdose on stream because he was streaming out some new meme coin he was dropping.
Oh, that was fucking insane.
Then a bunch of people got rugged on it, and it's like, okay, well, and this is like a common theme you see in like CoffeeZilla videos, for instance, where it's like you'll have like some teary-eyed like story about somebody, they're like suffering from cancer or whatever, and they lost all their money on some ridiculous token. And it's like, okay, well, I don't actually have any sympathy for that person anymore, because fundamentally, what are they trying to do when they're investing in these meme tokens? If I'm investing in like, do not invest in this token unless you're an idiot token. Like if I'm investing in that, my plan is not to like have a savvy investment where I think there's an actual like good which is going to go up in value or anything. My plan is that I want to be the early bird who gets in and then can rug the later birds, right? It's a big old casino game. Like I don't care if somebody, obviously I have sympathy for somebody if they're like addicted to gambling or whatever. Like that's terrible. I've had some family who've suffered from that. Like that's I definitely have sympathy there. But like if you're just kind of like, oh, and I'm going to get to scam some people if I get to be in this early. Like, okay, well, you were trying to do it to other people and it happened to you. I'm not really sympathetic towards you.
That's my point, is that the people that get online and sook about getting rug pulled, they were trying to be the rug pullers and they got rug pulled. They just weren't fast enough. Other people had faster keyboard hands than they did. They got out sooner and they were left holding the bag. So fucking boo-hoo. Like, I don't really give a shit. It's like putting all your money on, you put all your money on black and it came up red and now you're going to come cry to me about it. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, you knew what you were getting into going into it. No one actually thinks, unless they're genuinely like they have problems. No one thinks that, investing in a coin that's going to appreciate in value because someone overdosed on meth is a smart investment. So just like deal with it as far as I'm concerned. Like it is what it is.
Can I ask Zulu a follow-up question?
Sure. And then we'll get to the rest of the hands. But yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would you think about the I would agree with you there, but what would you think about the case about like a scammer from India, right? Like tricking like a old lady, right, who doesn't know, what they're doing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
on the internet.
Yeah, I would definitely have sympathy for that because I mean they're just not like cognitively prepared for that kind of invest. I mean that's why I think it's a good thing that banks, when you're doing like a large withdrawal, some people don't like this, but like they'll like go, okay, well, what are you going to use this money for? Because they're trying to protect you. Fundamentally, they are trying to protect you. Because a lot of times, some old lady will get like, Zac Efron is talking to me, and like they're really lonely, and it's like, oh, Zac Efron's saying he needs money for like his surgery, and then he can come out to see me. Like, yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for that. I think it's a very terrible thing, and you get this all the time with the elderly, where it's
my grandfather got scammed that way once.
Yeah, and what's really terrible about it is sometimes when they get
everybody
scammed,
knows somebody.
even if they realize at some point that they were scammed, they often don't report it because they're like embarrassed. They don't want to be like don't want to look stupid, and it's really a terrible thing to do to somebody. It's really awful. I have a lot of sympathy for those people.
Yeah,
My mom got scammed like from somebody literally like impersonating her boss and like telling her to buy gift cards and stuff.
the gift card thing is insane, and that's why I'm glad that a lot of supermarkets have started putting up, at least in Australia. Sorry, I'm trying to eat here, but in between bites, basically, like a lot of supermarkets have started putting up disclaimers like, "Hey, we're going to check why are you buying $2,000 worth of gift cards for some
gift
purchase?"
cards are very
Because
useful on the black market too, though, so like for good black market activity. I know some individual that actually lives on that. I've been told. Can't verify, but yeah.
So India is industrialized enough to have these like call centers, but they're also like third world enough. They don't have much work ethics, and they're like too poor that at that point they're like, I'm just willing to do whatever to make money, and they can't speak English because they were an English colony. That is why like their country is filled with these like literally scam call centers, and these are like full-time paid employees hired by agencies, and their whole job like they work like 9 to 10 hours a day just calling people to scam them, and like they're on a roll. Like these Indian companies give them a health insurance, PTO, full-time salary, commissions, etc.
yeah, it's full on insane. And so
Just like Zulu, you definitely think that would be fraud, right? Like theft by trick.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm Zac Efron, and I'm going to fly out to meet you, but all my money was stolen, so I just need $10,000 for the ticket or whatever. Give it to me in Walmart gift cards. Like, yeah, that's fraud.
Or like I mean, the more common one is like there'll be like a pop up on the computer, right? And the old person doesn't know how to doesn't know anything about computers, right? And then
like phishing we're talking about.
yeah, and they get control of the computer, right? And
Yeah.
make it look like they sent them too much money, right? For a refund for something, right? So they have to pay that money back to them.
Yeah.
I
Right.
consider those ones to be like uniquely evil, like people who play on your guilt play on like people's guilt by being like, "Oh, we sent you too much money, you got to send it back," and like that is just like prey on someone's guilt like that is just really really awful thing to do. Again, like I will say, so in the example of my granddad, like the bank since has been like, yeah, we're actually going to put restrictions on like when you can withdraw your money and how much at a time and that sort of thing. And from my perspective, I don't really have any issue with that. I think like if I'm a bank, so first of all, the bank paid out. Like I think he lost
But that's a
a few
different question.
$1,000, and the
Whether
bank
it's a
like paid
crime,
that
right?
back into his account. So the bank was the one that ended up. I mean, it's obviously with fractional reserve banking and fiat currencies, it's tough to see who actually lost. It was probably us in the form of more debt being accrued by the Australian government. But like the bank was the one that paid out there. So them being like, hey, you know, we're going to put some restrictions on, you know, if you're going to continue to bank with us, like, hey, you're going to have to, you know, demonstrate why you're going to withdraw this. We're going to put restrictions on
I
how
don't
much
like
money you
that.
can withdraw at any one time and for what reason and that sort of thing. So,
I want to disable that if I want to, you know.
for sure.
I one more thing though. I was gonna ask. I will not
Yeah.
ask, but I want to note about the discussion with Pau. So I was making an integration there on like states they require popular support, right? But democracy is kind of just simulating that with an extra level. So I don't think it's like an aggression actually at all to endorse via voting. I think it's just the same as action and inaction in respect to what the government is doing. Like if you endorse the government aggressing against your neighbor, you're not aggressing, but you're basically enabling statism. But everyone who isn't an ANCAP is basically enabling statism. So yeah, and that also that's viewpoint also makes it seem kind of ridiculous to want a libertarian ruler. Like you want, since if democracy is basically just simulated popular support of the state, then why do you want the libertarian to rule you, basically?
Well, there's definitely a degree to where it is aggression, right?
Yeah, if you're
I'm
knowingly,
not
I
sure.
mean,
I'm not convinced of that. Of voting.
Like say I call the police and I lie, right? Like I SWAT you, right? And they come in your house and shoot you. You know what I mean?
Yes. Then you're using yeah, but that's very direct. Like with voting, your vote basically has no say on it. Like there's millions of people usually with voting you're competing with. It's basically simulated popular support at that point. It's not you're not using them as a means really in that sense, I'd say.
I mean, I'm not so sure. Like, I think if you voted for Hitler specifically because you knew he was going to like gas the Jews, like I, I don't know, because like what is exactly the like? There's definitely intent.
Well,
So
I would say it's easier to say when people are voting for certain like laws, right? Certain policies, like say to raise the minimum wage, right? That'll appear on your state right ballot when the state elections or whatever come around, like midterm, right? Or like whenever the elections come around, they'll have all these like laws, right, or whatever that the state is gonna pass, right, and people will either vote for them to be passed or not, right?
Yeah, I think even then it's just that you're just basically showing popular support for that type of rule over people.
Well, it's not
Which
just popular support, is it? Right? Because the system is that these votes, right? These votes are even if you abstain from voting, right? Whatever, right? I mean, like the votes that the people that do vote, they're voting for your shit to get stolen, right?
I do
they
want to
are,
comment
yes.
on this.
And
The standard I normally give, I believe I gave this in the course, is if you're petitioning for the thing to happen, right? So if you're the mob
right,
boss and you're asking your goons to go out and hit someone, right? You're petitioning for that to happen, even if you're not doing it specifically yourself. Now, this could apply to voting as well, or campaigning. Like, if I'm a rabid socialist and I'm trying to get Zoran Mamdani in, well, then I'm actually petitioning for certain aggressions to happen, right? I'm not just passively going, oh, I reckon he'll probably be better than this other person.
I mean, especially if you
you know.
say it, if you say exactly what you want to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, true.
for sure. Zulu, did you have any super chats you needed to read out?
Yes, I've got 3 super chats here.
The only thing you need to prove, just one thing, like the only thing you need to prove really is that the person who was aggressing was following your orders,
Yeah.
right? That's all you need to prove, and then you would be liable just the same.
Yeah. So I will get into these super chats. First from the Lazy Fae for another $10. Thank you very much. What exactly is the principled stance if one is already contracted to the state armed forces for the foreseeable future? Is switching to a better branch pragmatism? Is taking benefits parasitic? So, yeah, like I understand with the U.S. military, I believe, when you sign up, you're like their slave pretty much for a certain period of time. And you might sign up in your youth. This is why they target the youth, right? When you're like fucking fresh out of high school, you're just about to get out of high school even, and they try and target you and like, oh, you're going to get all these benefits and everything, and you don't really know what's going on. Like, it is possible to make the honest mistake of joining a military like that. So what do you do if you're in that situation there? I'd say, obviously you're not going to get out of that contract. They make those things pretty airtight, and civilian laws no longer apply to you, right? So you can't get out of that in any real way. You're going to go to courts martial, right? As far as my understanding is. So I would say, yeah, try and switch to the better branch. Try and minimize the chances that they're going to order you to do any aggression. And if they are ordering you to do aggression, really, I don't think you should do it. If they're ordering you to shoot a child,
Right.
I don't think the I was just following orders defense works. You've got to abstain from that aggression. Obviously now there is the thing where you're getting funded by taxes, of course. But so long as you're not petitioning for further taxes and you're willing to like restitute specific victims, then I think it's fine. Well, it's not fine. You're
Well,
obviously in a terrible situation,
it's
but
like
try and avoid it as much as possible.
it's like if you get welfare, right? It's
Yeah.
you're just homesteading it, right? If the state wants to give me all this unowned like
Yeah,
all this
that's
unowned
true.
money,
You can be the guardian of
just
this
homestead.
money in the meantime. And if it comes down to it, if some like person's like, hey, I specifically was like robbed of everything by the US government, and that's now
Better
like
in
yours.
my hands than the state's hands, right?
Yeah, and then you should definitely arrest dude. But I will plow forward with these. So thank you for the $10. Huge Hat Harold for $4.99. Thank you very much. He's saying Monhop, he took your investment advice and lost a whole penny, so he's going to see you in court. So, good luck with that one. You're
I'll
gonna
have to steal a penny in order to restitute you, unfortunately.
yes, you're gonna have to steal a penny, and then you'll save the world from your horrible investing advice. And then last but not least is from Ariel Suarez, 5471 for $10. Thank you very much. Who says, when I just got a donation from Zetetic as well, so I'll read that in a second. Scamming people on phone calls by impersonating the IRS is very common here in the US too. Scammers act very aggressively and even threaten to send cops to arrest you. To some, it can be a scary experience. Yeah, indeed, that is about as bad as it could get when it comes to scamming old people and whatnot. So thank you for the money. And then Zetetic for $100. Thank you very much, man. I assume you're good with me reading this out on stream?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, Zetetic is asking, could you read an agorist primer? It's or primer. I never know how to pronounce that. It's on archive.org. Yeah, I could definitely read that. Yeah.
Nice.
I will just say, so I'm aware of those IRS scams. We actually have them. We had them in Australia at one point. ATO, like the Australian Taxation Office, like people were impersonating them and doing similar things. It didn't. I don't think it worked as well in Australia because the government my understanding of how it works in the US is you have to actually do your taxes at tax time and like send money to the government. In Australia, it just gets automatically deducted out of your bank account. So I think it was far less convincing because people couldn't be like seduced into thinking that they'd like filed their taxes wrong, because in Australia you don't file taxes. You file claims to get money back, but like the money just gets automatically deducted. So
Here
you're
it's
not
the
going to have
same.
a situation where you could have accidentally underpaid your taxes and then like you're going to get the cops called on you or something.
Here it's the same thing, but unfortunately, because I'm employed technically by a US company, I do have to file my own taxes. So it's always, I've always got to keep an eye on my calendar to make sure I'm not, overstaying that period there of the tax year.
Mm. I will just read. I wanted to get into a couple of things that are in the Jumbotron. The first of all is this iconic tweet, which will go down in infamy and will never, ever, ever be forgotten, of Angela McArdle saying that we have a libertarian president of the United States in reference to Trump. So Weston Smith asked in the comments on that if this was like asking for the context and like was it satire or not. Can confirm it absolutely was not satire. My understanding of the context was it was because Trump was handed like a Libertarian Party life membership or something, and that therefore that constituted, him being a libertarian. I'm pretty sure my understanding of that is the context for that.
Yeah,
I
I
can
believe
confirm
that's
though
the
that
case.
that is not satire whatsoever. She does in fact genuinely believe that.
I have to add something. Like, she has not like backpedaled. She just posted on Twitter. It is not over. We're literally 13 months into a project that will take at least a decade. Quitters never win. Like, she's still going for it. She's like
Again,
still on the pro Trump, like pro
her
like
baby
Republican
daddy,
Party side.
her baby daddy has like talked about how like he will be the last libertarian on the Trump train. Like he's literally posted about this. He's like he's got this meme where there's like the guy like riding on the top of a train, like holding on for dear life. Like that is their stance. They will be on the Trump train forever. So back
I
to what
mean,
we were
Oh my
talking about at the start of
god.
the podcast, I'm not convinced that everyone's going to jump off this train.
if this is
Or that
the
we're
13 months we have gotten, I cannot imagine what Angela is planning for the rest of the 10 years. Like, if this is her 10 years plans per like stage, I really can't imagine the horrors Angela is planning for the American public.
I think so. She'll probably turn into like when Trump launches a nuclear war in 2027 or something. She'll turn into like an ANCAP.
Don't quit.
What was it called? Like, what's the ideal? Like a Poseidist? Like those insane
sadist.
communists that were around who were like, we need to bring about a nuclear war in order to ensure the communist revolution. That's going to be her for ANCAP. It's going to be like, hey, we just need a nuclear
Great.
war, and then we can bring about ANCAP utopia out of the rubble.
Society is destroyed, civilization is gone, anarchist societies emerge, and Angela's
Yeah.
like, this was my grandmaster treaty 4D chess.
I can't
It's
wait for
literally gonna be
society to
her.
collapse so
You got-
my ideology can rise
Yeah,
from the ashes.
you guys are just playing checkers. She's playing 5-dimensional chess with her nuclear war task
She's
plan.
literally playing war games. Yeah.
You just need to
Honestly,
understand.
the really
she was
thinking is she wants to become a politician, like an actual politician that is actually So I know some Cato people that work in DC, and they told me like Angela's a complete joke, and she tries to constantly hang out with Republicans. And apparently, like once she leaves the tables, the Republicans are like when is this bitch gonna leave? Like she tries to hang out with us, and like they tell me like in DC she's a complete joke. Like no one wants to be near her, and Republicans like completely treat her like like she's nothing.
Dude,
So apparently her
it's
goal is like to become a
genuinely-
relevant politician.
that's got to
It
be
is
like
genuinely so ironic, this whole thing, because these people used to talk so much shit, and rightfully so, about like the regime libertarians, the way
yes,
station
exactly.
libertarians who wanted to be libertarians to hang out at the cocktail parties in DC and hang out with back then it was probably more like Democrats. But they wanted to hang out with these politicians and they use like their libertarianism as like that. Like they literally have done the exact same thing. They like Angela repeatedly posts this photo of her sitting next to Trump as if it's like some kind of flex. It's like, dude, no one fucking cares that you sat next to Donald Trump. Okay, I promise you.
Yeah,
But they've done the exact same thing as the regime libertarians, the original prags that they hated so much, did for so long.
yeah, like that's got to be the ultimate humiliation for Angela here. Is that not only is she doing this thing where it's like, oh, I'm getting invited to the Washington luncheons, or more accurate, the Mar-a-Lago luncheons, like the Cato Tards did, like the people, like the Prags did. Not only is she doing that, but apparently she's also getting laughed at behind her back. Like, that's gonna. She's not even like respected at all.
I mean,
and like
of course she is,
accepted.
because her biggest policy win so far is Ross Ulbricht. Again, like we're not gonna hate on that. Like it's a good thing that he got out. Okay, but like these people actually think they're like genuine movers and shakers, and like this is the kingmaker strategy. Like these people genuinely think they have influence. Like if I was a fucking Republican, I'd be laughing at them too, because it's completely laughable that these people think that they have any kind of influence, because the reality is the libertarian movement cares about Ross Ulbricht, okay, because of the injustice that was done to him, and rightfully so. We should care about that, okay? But no one else gives a shit, okay? Literally no one else. So the point being that Trump could free Ross Ulbricht with basically it cost him no political capital to do that. Okay, zero. Because no one gave a shit. None of, even like the only person I can think of that expressed any kind of opposition to it was like Michael Knowles, like the Daily Wire guy. He was kind of like, hang on, why are we freeing this like convicted drug dealer or whatever? Like this doesn't really make sense. But again, it was done during the honeymoon period of Trump winning 2024. So basically, no one gave a shit, and it cost him basically nothing to do it. So, like, yeah, he can fulfill that promise. Literally every other promise that he made that might require a bit of spine, he's defaulted on, including the big one that that we've been discussing so far, which has been Iran. I do want to get to the rest of the hands, but I did want to bring up Corey Massimino, who we were dissing on, I think it was episode 4, maybe, of the Remnant, maybe episode 5. I can't remember. But we were talking a lot of shit about him because of that whole James Conkin thing that went down, and then how C4SS was posting about how treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity. He's taken a screenshot of a tweet from our good Kantian friend Joe, who's actually in the listeners at the moment, and he just waved at me. He's saying hi. Joe is our favorite Kantian in the world, and he posted that Jewish supremacy is a problem, yes. And that was quote tweeted, or not even quote tweeted, it was screenshotted by Corey Massimino. And he is basically like, he's
Well,
like, checking
of course,
in again on
Corey,
the
with
folks
his
who.
massive audience, can't give the eyeballs to Joe in terms of
Yeah, I know,
impressions.
absolutely. Like, you wouldn't want to quote tweet him and give him that engagement, that sweet, sweet engagement. Joe just is so unpopular compared to him that it wouldn't even be worth doing. But no, but like again, these people are just like Corey just showing his. Again, you guys can all see it. I don't need to read it out for you, but yeah, it's just fucking insane. These people are complete losers, and they can't see like the pretty clear distinction between being like whiteness in and of itself is you ought to be treasonous against versus specifically Jewish supremacy, like specifically the view that Jewish people are superior to other people. Like that's a pretty clear distinction.
Jews are white. So, like, a Jewish nationalist would have to necessarily be a white nationalist, that's known, but they are pretty much white. Like, I usually cannot differentiate a Jew from a white person if they're Ashkenazi.
A whole bunch of Jews just shit themselves after hearing that.
Like, am I making nuts? Can you guys, like, differentiate Ashkenazis?
I think that Jewish people would consider themselves to be ethnically distinct from, like, Anglo white people.
They
like
are
European
similar
whites.
in like the skin tone is very much the same, but you can often
the
tell.
actual phenotypical makeup as far as like how they look, but as far as like their actual ethnicity, I would say that Jews would consider themselves ethnically distinct from.
If Semitic people, then me as a Turk, I'm a true Mongolian that should be like riding horses in Mongolian steppes because like Turks were like what 6,000 years ago were in Central Asia.
You should recite that Hans crash out where he's like calling himself a Mongoloid right now.
Isn't Hans Arabic?
Yeah, no, I mean I know that's why it's all the more funny is because like someone calls him a Mongoloid, which for reference, Mongoloid does not just mean doesn't mean Mongolian, but he's like I am a Mongoloid.
Yeah,
it's a very
Chronic,
very very funny crash out.
Chronic
which
is in
all the
chat.
more funny by the fact that he's not even Mongolian.
Chronic is in chat saying that you need more practice on ethnoguessers, Sue. So get on that.
You need to start checking the early life.
I need to practice ethnoguesser so I can make racist comments more in a more knowledgeable way.
Exactly. You need to be accurate with your racism.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, I want to go to Acorn, and then we'll hit up Motha Throw, and then we'll keep moving through the hands. So, Acorn, thank you for coming on once again, brother. Please jump in and please go ahead.
Hi. I don't have too much to say this time. The topic is "We Told You So," and my comment on that is just that I really like how you guys are embracing this "I told you so" thing. I know so many people who are just like, you shouldn't say "I told you so" even when you're right, and I just get so annoyed at that. Like, because I'm a guy who says "I told you so" a lot, and I think that's if someone's saying "I told you so," unless it's just like a coincidence or something, it means that they're right about something and you're wrong about something, which means that you should probably listen to them more in the future. And I think I've seen Zulu said "I told you so" like in various X posts like previously. So I really like that. And the other thing
exactly.
is,
sorry.
The giving out of Fell For It Again awards will continue.
Yeah, it's entirely correct. I do want to comment on that a little bit. It's entirely correct to kind of rub these people's noses in it, because Acorn's entirely correct that, like, well, there is some premise that they had wrong, and we identified it as wrong. I identified many in the Libertarian video, and if you don't rub their noses in it, how the heck are they ever going to recognize that? You got to show to everybody, hey, look, we predicted all of this. We were right. They were wrong. So stop listening to these people. Listen to us a little bit more. How about?
I mean, exactly. if these people were honest, they would be like, okay, sorry, like we were completely wrong. Now I'm gonna like, step back from politics because I support this horrible person that did these horrible things. I think that murdering 106 children is one of the most horrible things you can do. Like they're not even doing that. I mean, Dave Smith did like accept his fault, so like I do give Dave Smith that. But it's like these people are not even backpedaling. They're like continuing with the ride. which is why like they should be like pressured and like shamed for doing that.
Yeah, I will agree that Dave has, like, I mean, clearly that's not deniable that he has admitted that he was wrong, but I don't think he's fully internalized why, as Zulu kind of referenced earlier. Like, I don't think that they've fully come to terms with the implications of why they were wrong and how they were wrong and what that actually means. Let me just also say that I can't remember what I was going to say. Acorn, please jump back in, and then I'll try and think of what I was going to say.
To add on this topic, some people have told me that when you're trying to convince someone, if you like tell them that they're wrong, they'll feel threatened and less likely to change. But since we are going by the Remnant strategy, we're not trying to like convince every single person on Earth. We're trying to convince who matters, and the people that matter are people who can be convinced by rational arguments despite their feelings.
Absolutely,
Exactly. Like, I do want to bring up. I've brought up this story before, but it's the story of how I made that final step to becoming, to become an ANCAP, and this was driven by Idlework, who I know Acorn knows. Where basically I was in Michael Moreno's server, and he just kind of beat me over the head with all of my contradictions. Like he was not nice with it or anything. He was very disagreeable with it, in fact. But I just had to go, well, actually, I'm not able to refute any of this. So I guess I got to read this book he's recommending, The Ethics of Anarcho-Capitalism by Christopher Borer. Very good book if you're interested. Buy it for friends, buy it for family. It's a great book. It's like narratively driven and teases out actually a very good ethical foundation for anarcho-capitalism. I think he's wrong in some parts, but it's very solid. Like it's not this kind of hoodoo voodoo like woo woo type of anarcho-capital. He's very precise with the legal theory, right? And he just kind of beat me over the head with it, and that's how I was convinced. And this works for the people who matter. The people who matter aren't going to go, well, my honor's been offended here. They're going to want to be right. They want to be right. So they're going to concede and then go, yeah, I was actually wrong there. So a big shout out to Idlework. He was the final nail in the coffin, which turned me into an anarchist.
By the way, I just popped Haz's crash out on being a mongoloid in the at the top of the channel. It's just absolutely fucking so funny. People should check it out. But Akon, please jump back in.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to ask is, we've previously discussed how in some cases actus reus is determined by intent. For example, someone accidentally leaking the locations of Jews to some Nazis versus them intentionally doing so. Do you think voting is another example of this? Is there a physical difference of action between voting as a petition and voting for the better of two evils, or is it just about your intentions when doing the voting?
I think there is an actual like action difference. Now let me elaborate on that. For instance, I might say to somebody, hey, let's go for a walk in the woods. And it's like, oh, that's a really good spot for a photo. You should go stand there and I'll take a picture of you. And then out of nowhere, lightning strikes them. And it's like a huge disaster. That's a different action, I think, to me knowing I've got like a lightning prediction machine. I know exactly where lightning's going to strike. And I know that lightning will strike them if they stand there. And I coax them like, hey, go stand over there for this photo. Like, I think that's a different action. I've got completely different intentions there than just taking a picture of them. In one case, the action is, I want a nice photo of my friend in the woods. The other case is, I want to kill this person by using the lightning as a means to kill them. Now, I think that's still a criminal action, even if I got it wrong, right? Even if it turns out like a plane got in the way and the lightning hit the plane instead. And it's like, oh shit, my action failed. Like, it's still a different action to me just trying to take a picture of them.
Yeah, I understand that it's a different action because, well, action includes the intentions and the ends you're trying to achieve. I'm asking, like, whether previously we've discussed how in the Jewish examples that I gave earlier, the actual actus reus, whether you have actus reus or not, depends on the intentions, which we noted as being kind of weird and like unique to that case. I'm wondering if it's the same thing is going on here, where the actus reus is dependent on the intent. And I'm wondering if you there might be like more examples of this.
Yeah, so I think actus reus, it refers to guilty action. And I think that is the case, right? The action is guilty because of the intentions, right? And that's what makes it a different action when I'm trying to get them struck by lightning versus just taking a picture of them, right? One is actus reus, one is a guilty action, one isn't. So I do agree with that. Yeah, that's why it changes.
A quick question, just to add on to that. Can we say instead of a guilty action, more like negligence? For example, for that Jew example, where if somebody accidentally leaks it, is there like a sense of culpability and I guess because of the outcome that happens? I guess is that like a wrong way to think about it?
So for the Jew example, I'm not sure that
You
it's.
could call this the Jewish question, perhaps.
Oh Lord.
Yes, for the Jewish question, I'm not sure that there could be negligence there if you just completely. I suppose it depends on whether you're actually being epistemically negligent. Like you've agreed, I will hide you in my house, and I'm going to protect you, your identity, and everything. And then you're just like blurting out, like drunk in the other streets, "Oh, there's a bunch of Jews in here." Like, yeah, you're being epistemically negligent there. You could have worked out that that's going to cause problems. But if somebody just says, "Hey, can I be your tenant?" And my name is John Silver. I want to be your tenant, please. It's like, yeah, sure. And then you're just down at the bar, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, this guy, John Silver, he's staying at my house. And it's like, whoa, I'm trying to kill him because he's a Jew. So, what? Oh, I don't think that's necessarily negligence, but there could be a negligence component to it. But really, the broader principle is actus reus, is the guilty action. Is the action guilty or not? Now, it might be guilty through negligence, in which case you don't have any mens rea, but it might be guilty without the negligence.
Nice stuff. Very well done, everyone. Let me go to Mothethrow, and then we'll hit up Weston, and then we'll keep things moving. So Mothethrow, please jump in.
All right, thank you, Monhop. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
You're a little bit loud.
Right,
Could
good.
you get back from the
Very
mic a
loud,
little
yes.
bit?
Loud. Okay, I should maybe move away from my mic.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better? Okay, good. So I remember last time, perhaps this would have been a more suited question for then. You were talking about reinducting a lot of the theory because it's so focused on like negative proofs. I'm curious, is our standard of intersubjective ascertainability going to be something that we should re-examine? Because it's something that I've kind of been skeptical of based on how non-objective it actually is and dependent on people and individual actors thinking.
Okay, so this basically comes from for those who don't know, the theory of what constitutes a property right. And one of the criteria is that it has to be intersubjectively ascertainable, the property borders. Now, I don't like that word, but that is just the word like used in literature. Obviously, I don't think there's such a thing as intersubjective. That's more of a Kantian term, which obviously this comes from Hoppe. He's a Kantian, so it's going to have the Kantian terminology. Now, I don't think that should necessarily discount the thrust of what he's saying, though. There is something to, I do agree, that if other people can't see your property right, well, then you're actually not able to avoid conflicts over that property, right? If people couldn't come along and know that you own a thing, well, then you're just begetting conflict there. So I think it is correct. Like this, and this seems very inductive to me. Like this is not just like I've got 100 premise proof, and it's like, oh, and therefore you got to have this, right? This is just look at what it means to say that property rights are conflict avoiding norms. Well, if you can't avoid conflicts over something, then you don't have property in that area. So if you've got a supposed property right where nobody in the world could determine that you actually own that thing, you just kind of decree to the woods that you own a mountain, well, nobody could come along and know that you own that mountain later. So you can't avoid conflicts. So this has to be an invalid property arrangement.
Right. One thing I'd also like to kind of examine, still related to the same concept, is like non-bordered property. So to give an example, when I, in the summertime, I often go for walks in the morning, and there's a little area I go through with that has a like teepee-looking structure out in the bushes, and it is kind of debatable whether or not it actually seems to be man-made or not, and it doesn't have clear borders. So I'm curious, would you actually be able to establish that as clearly being property, and by what means, and how do you actually have the border for it determined?
Sure. So it would be very much dependent on the case. I'm going to say what I've said before in other calls and whatnot, that as a jurist, I cannot give you an objective answer on specific cases. That's for the judge to do, right? And so if it was brought up in court, like it came to an actual conflict, like no, this turns out to be somebody's structure that they built, like some lean-to or whatever, then you'd be like, okay, well, we got to figure out, would you be able to reasonably figure out that this was not a natural feature? But that is up to the judge in the end case, right? That I can't tell you that from the armchair. I would have to like go and investigate myself before I could form an opinion on that. But if it is the case that like clearly this is not a natural structure, then yeah, that has established a border, and the border would be the bounds of the property. Like as in, what could I do with respect to this without causing a conflict with how they're using it? And how they're using it, you can just see, you can ascertain it from the structure to an extent.
Right, thank you. That's all I had.
Doris, thank you very much for coming on.
Appreciate that. Let's go to Weston next, and then we'll let Eli jump back in. But Weston, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so second question. What are the ethics surrounding a voluntary, like, say, liberation agency in Ancapistan that would use the threat and backing of force to remove or weaken states?
I would say that would be completely illicit. That would be completely fine with me. I would indeed, if we were in Ancapistan, to use that term, I would even support such agencies to an extent. Like if they could go in,
patronize them.
Yeah, if they could go in, like, maybe I've got a friend in, Ruritania, to use a fictional example. I've got a friend in Ruritania, and they're constantly complaining to me, like, the Ruritanian government is really screwing me over. Like, I don't have any money anymore. Like, the Ruritanian government, they're really doing all these awful things. Like, they killed my sister. Like, they're doing all this stuff. Like, if I had the means, I'd go like, yeah, let's get together some guys and pay some people to go in there and assassinate the head of the Ruritanian government as retribution for all that he's doing. I'd be completely fine with all that.
Cool. Thank you, Weston. Appreciate it. Let's go to Eli next.
Yeah, I had a question about like a little bit about investing, but not in the way you guys are thinking of. But it was brought to my attention by like a friend. He was asking, why would anybody want to invest in any like product or service if they didn't have a guarantee like or patent that they would make their money back at a certain like timeline or whatever? And like what would stop, let's say, a bigger company from just reverse engineering either a product or a service and just like basically becoming the second one in the market and dominate?
So, there's the first mover. So I'll just quickly jump in on this. So first of all, there's the first mover advantage. So I'll give you an example. Uber never gained a patent for their right to be the sole provider of ride-sharing services. There's many other competitors these days, but Uber has gained a foothold over the market because of their first mover advantage. They gained a kind of name brand reputation to where people will say, hey, they're not calling a ride share, they're calling an Uber, right? They literally use that term. It's kind of like brand recognition and association with the actual product. So that's the first point. So I mean, more generally, like the basic example is just going to be like, hey, your poor business practice isn't my problem. Okay, the legal theory isn't there to figure out, hey, how can people successfully produce products? It's there to decide what's aggressive or not. So like if you produce some medicine or something, and you're expecting to gain a huge amount of profit out of it because you're going to be the sole provider, and then someone reverse engineers it. It's like, oh, well, you're shit out of luck. Like, bad luck, man. You should have protected your secrets better.
Kinsella,
Yeah, that's
your failed business. Yeah,
that's what
your
Kinsella would
failed
say.
business model. Your failed business model is not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of the brutal reality of markets, and that's. But with that, outside of that, there are definitely mechanisms in place that do reward, like market mechanisms in place that do reward people that innovate and develop new technologies. And like I would say, Uber is a great example of that as a case in point.
I do want to comment for the general case here, where your question is kind of pointing at, well, what if somebody wants to invest and they're not going to invest unless they have a guarantee in getting their money back? Well, actually, the whole point with investments is you never have any guarantee that you're going to get your money back. Some investments go bad. I've done a lot of investments. Maybe the companies I invest in go to zero. Maybe the Bitcoin I've invested in goes to zero. Maybe that happens. Like, that's the point with investing, is that there's some risk being taken on by the person doing the investment, the capitalist, right? He's taking on some amount of risk. And really, it's not the job of the government to come in and kind of make sure that nobody has any risks ever. Because that's the whole point of investment. You're trying, the whole reason why we like it as economists is that we want these people who are more intelligent, more knowledgeable of the market to be investing in those things that are going to do well, and then you have a sort of Darwinian evolution going on, right? People who are bad at investing, they end up going out of business. Whereas people who are good at investing, they end up getting more and more money so they can do more and more investments. And that's really how the market flourishes. So you can't have this thing of just constant bailouts, because then you're just helping bad investors stay in the market. You lose this evolutionary mechanism where you get better and better and better investors by having this guarantee in investment. And that's one thing that Kinsella says in terms of debt contracts, why he thinks that, well, no, if I loaned Monhop $200 for his business plan, in exchange he'll give me $500 in a year's time, right? If I do that aleatory contract is what it's called, and he doesn't have the $500, he hasn't stolen from me. The investment just went bad. The loan went bad, and I've just got to suck it up at that point. Like, he doesn't owe me anything from that point forward.
With that all said, Zulu, can I have $200, please, for this business venture that I'm super confident in? Just quickly, as far as the risk assessment thing goes, like, there is this entire like multi-billion-dollar industry, or I suppose, working arrangements called being a quantitative quants, right? Whose whole job is to, part of their job, a major portion of their job is assessing the risk associated with certain business ventures for specific venture capital firms and whatnot. And if you are intelligent enough to figure out like some investment strategy that's almost zero risk or is zero risk, then you can make a shitload of money doing that, my guy. So, like, hey, look, if anyone thinks they got a zero risk investment strategy, you could make $1 bajillion as setting up a firm with a bunch of quants. They're going to go ahead and do that. You can sell that idea to some hedge funds and venture capital firms for a fuckload of money. So, no, like, look, the one last thing I'll say is that. So Safedine Amoose, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He talks about this a fair bit. He's obviously a big Bitcoin guy, but he talks about this a fair bit where, fractional reserve banking and inflation has made it to where saving. So the low risk, it's never going to be zero risk, but the low risk means of acquiring and accumulating capital is supposed to be saving, right? You're supposed to be like putting money in a bank and just having it sit there. Like, under a free market, that should be a means of accumulating capital. That's low risk. Investing is supposed. I don't like using these like normatively loaded terms, but I think it's the best I can come up with. Investing is supposed to be higher risk because it's higher return, right? But the problem is that under the current regime where you have fiat money and inflation, saving is a relatively poor financial strategy because you're going to lose against the inflation. If you have a set sum of money that's worth $5,000 and inflation is 5%, well, doing the quick math, I think that's $25 that you're going to lose, or maybe even more than that. Over the course of $250, I think. Sorry, I'm not doing the maths very well here, but $250 of value that you're going to lose on that store of value, where that should not be happening under a free market. So, like, I get what you mean as far as it feels like people are kind of forced to invest and take on risk in order to make money, or even just keep their money as it is under the current regime. That should not be the case. People should be able to, just save and accumulate capital purely by keeping money in a bank account.
Yeah, what was really like his argument was more like, oh, it's an incentive structure for people to invest, essentially. Like, whether it's not about, forget about even the return, it's more that you're kind of also making sure that your capital has a chance to, let's say, quote unquote, let's say if you are the happen to be the first mover, that you actually had a chance to go ahead and be that first person before anybody, maybe like you had corporate espionage, somebody went into your, like, stole your secrets or whatever it is, and they managed to beat you as the first mover just because you're maybe smaller, you didn't have the top security or whatever. And it would essentially ensure that capital had a chance to go ahead and do whatever you were investing in. I guess that was kind of the argument.
Sure. I mean, my basic answer is like, look, if you have a really, really good idea that you're really, really confident in, just get people to invest money on your behalf. Like, do what Zulu suggested. Like, get people to come on board. Be like, hey, I'll get investors, angel investors, whatever else. Like, hey, I've got a really smart idea. This is going to make us a shitload of money. You just got to keep it a secret, and you'll go from being a small business to a big business in relatively short order. That's basically like that's how I think the market mechanism would play out. If you have this really, really good idea that you needed to protect from potential rivals. But no, appreciate that, Eli. I want to go to Zulu. Did you have any super chats or anything you needed to read out, or any contributions to make at all? Or
Nope, I'm all good on my end.
Sweet, cool. We'll keep things moving then.
Well, actually, I think I got one on Ko-fi.
Okay.
It was from Zedman23 for $10. I don't know if he's actually in chat, so I don't know if I'm allowed to read that one out. The thing with Ko-fi donations is the message is private by default, so I don't like reading that out. If you're in chat, Zedman, let me know if you want me to read that out on stream, and I will do.
No, they are not private by default, but I can.
They absolutely are. I can see your messages, but nobody else can.
Okay, since I can click a box that says private message, and it by default it was off this time, and usually is, I think.
Oh, I see.
Because I can see all of the donations.
Okay,
on the page.
so
I can check
maybe it's just because I've always been logged in, so I can always see them. So I just didn't notice that some of them were public. But I suppose I'll assume private unless otherwise specified.
I'll see if it's
totally fair. So yeah, we'll wait on that.
It up now. Like, can I commission a bread tube bingo card? It says.
Okay. So yeah, he's asking if you can commission a bread tube bingo card. I mean, potentially, yeah. I'm not opposed to such a thing.
For sure. Let's hit up G now, and then we'll get through anyone else that wants to jump in. But G, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring it back to, the whole interventionism thing. I think maybe we should dedicate a whole stream to that, honestly, because it's really important stuff.
I mean, is that not what this stream is?
Yeah,
or do you mean more in general interventionism, not just military?
No. I mean the analysis of interventionism, like the Rothbard's theory of interventionism, like the analysis of government interventions, like and what
Okay.
you could say about them and
Well,
all that.
the thing is,
And their effects, analyzing their effects, right, and their direct and indirect effects.
The thing is, I never actually got around to Power and Market. I read through most of Man, Economy and State, but I never got to Power and Market, so I don't know how much I would have to say on that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's really really important stuff. I mean it's like the basis of like Hobbes like class theory thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like the whole it's really like important stuff. Just to be clear, like on what the state exactly like is, right, and what we can say about like the effects of intervention, right?
So, my recollection of some of this stuff, and it's been a while since I've read Rothbard, specifically on economics. So, forgive me, but like I get what you mean as far as so Rothbard seems to make a similar point as to what we talk about with the arrow of regression, where basically he says like, look, you can't make this distinction where you go, well, some state interventions are like okay or could be like less bad in the utilitarian sense because
There's no
ultimately
profit and
all of
loss.
these aggressions contain the premise that you can use the state as a legitimate tool of like social good or something, and
Right,
so
but
that's where
there's
he's kind
also
of
no profit and loss signals, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So no, like I don't think anyone like I mean I'll only speak for myself, but I'm sure Zulu's gonna. I mean, maybe he'll disagree with like kind of my ultimate point here, but like no one here is gonna say like yeah, look, like this aggression wasn't bad or anything. Like in comparing different like military interventions, I think
Yeah, that's
the
not
only
something you can
point
do. That's the point.
like
That's
so
Rothbard's point.
I don't think that Rothbard would claim that there is no moral distinction that can possibly be drawn between
That's
different
his. That's
aggressions.
he would 100% say that.
I think he would say that value is subjective, so you cannot, again, in an economic sense, determine which one is better or worse. I don't think that would necessarily extend to whether or not like murder is better or worse than like stealing a penny. Like I don't think that he would make the claim that you cannot determine that one is worse than the other
By what standard?
by I don't know. You could
Like
have moral.
in what sense is it better or worse?
I mean, again, I would just again generally speaking, like I don't know exactly what Rothbard's like full moral worldview was, but like I think that he would just claim that like there's a moral standard that can be held independent of when we talk about economics and value. Like yeah, value is subjective, but you can make moral claims independent of that.
Moral claims about what?
I do want to comment on this, because it is worth checking our premises here. Clearly, we have
Right.
some means by which we can figure out that, hey, it's way more important for us to right now talk about the war in Iran than it is to talk about the guy who broke into Tesco last week. Clearly, we have some means to do that. Now, even if we haven't worked out what that means is, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? Now, we might be wrong in how we apply that sometimes because we're not explicit about it, but that it's implicit doesn't mean that it's invalid.
I mean, it doesn't sound like that's analogous, really.
Well, how is it not? Because we're talking about how weighing different aggressions as being better or worse.
Well, we're talking about what's relevant. That's what you just said. How do we compare what's relevant to talk about? That's not
Well, yeah, and I'm saying we might not know that.
the utility of different aggressions, right?
It might be the case.
There's no comparison.
It might be the case that
Like
nobody's. Hold on.
The effects of aggression on utility, right?
It might be the case that nobody's worked out how we're able to determine that the Iran war is more important to talk about right now than the guy who broke into Tesco's last week. That might be the case, that nobody's done that philosophy yet. But that doesn't mean that that philosophy doesn't exist out there in the Platonic realm, if you will, right? That might still, there might still be some truth there that we haven't figured out.
I mean,
look, I'll give you.
I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with that, you know,
A simple,
epistemically, epistemologically, but
here's a simple deduction for you. Like, if life is the standard, do you agree that life is the standard of value?
yes.
Okay, so would you say that an action that is more threatening to life or harms more lives is worse?
Okay,
Is that
how am
a
I doing this? How am I evaluating, right, the effects of aggression on other people's utility, mind you, right? The utility of a group of people, right? How am I doing
don't
this,
think
right? We
utility
we we
factors
we
into
have
it.
to think about this as Austrians, bro. This is these are questions of
Yeah, but
praxeology.
aggression is
Right?
not like a matter of like economics. We're looking in a matter of virtue and
What?
morality too. We're not looking at like
What am I
economic.
evaluating?
So to be clear, again,
The
praxeology and
effects of
economics is
aggression on the
this.
utility of others. That
So
doesn't make sense. Like
so
the only thing I can say about that is that it necessarily cannot increase their utility. That's
So
it.
I think the problem here, when I look at that, I look at not like the utility of like what it materially causes. I look at the morality of the action, the immorality of the action, how this immorality
I don't
impact
know
others. Bruh.
what that has to do with anything. We're talking like how do you
So if the
compare
topic is like
them?
whether like war of Iran should be prioritized, like for me, that's a I'm looking at it in terms of virtues and morality, and that's a prioritization for me because I think it's way more immoral to kill a child. And if you're gonna try justifying that, like you need to do a lot more rhetorics
Immoral.
compared to like someone like key in my car, right? A child dying is for me is way more immoral than key in my car.
I don't know what way more immoral means.
What it sounds like he's
I mean, it's
trying
objective,
to.
and I'm pretty sure you know what like
By
morality,
what standard?
immorality, and what makes
No,
something more
I don't
moral and
think
more.
morality is concerned with immorality at all, or
Bro,
anything
what?
like that.
Morality is not concerned about immorality.
Yeah. Morality is a guide to life, to action. It's concerned with shoulds, not.
Do you
It's
think?
not concerned with should
Okay,
nots.
you think odd statements do not imply what you should not do?
I don't think it's part of morality at all.
But you wait.
I don't know
So
what that
if I
means.
say
Like I've had a bunch of discussions about this in my server, and I know we disagree on this, but this is not relevant. Okay, this is
no,
not what we
so
were
like
talking about. You're coming in with something else.
okay, if the
That's
question
not
is like
relevant.
why should we talk about let's say war in Iran versus like anti-aggression, I'm saying like there's also a situation of like morality
But that's a
involved in
different
here.
standard.
Okay, do you or do you not think there's a standard where it may be more important for someone
It's a
to talk
standard of
about the war
relevance to
in
the
Iran?
discussion. Like that's a different
Okay,
standard
can you
completely.
please answer my question? Like I don't know why you're so
Why
like
am I
edgy
talking to
right now.
you?
Because this is a public channel that is like available for everyone to talk, and one hub accept me as a speaker.
I mean, you just came in when I was
I
trying to
didn't
talk
come.
to
I've been here
Zulu.
for like an hour, but I don't know why you're like so mad right now.
I'm not mad. I'm trying to
I'm
figure
just
out
I
Just
just
for
why
the
asked
you're
a
coming
question.
in
simple
with something
question.
else. That's
all right. I was going to let everyone go for it for a little while, but I'm just going to jump in here. Listen, if I'm not jumping in and telling someone to stop speaking, then everyone can assume that they have myself and presumably Zulu's blessing to continue to speak. So that's going to be the premise upon which we're going to operate here. So Sue is, as she correctly pointed out, has been accepted onto the panel. So, like, look, if you want to, talk to me about it, then like for sure. But if you're going to engage in a discussion with Sue, then like that's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm gonna back that up. Like, kind of what I want this podcast to be. It's sort of like a normal podcast, but it's got a rotating and publicly accessible panel of guests. Right. If you're a guest up here, obviously, if there's some point of discussion that like maybe I'm going into with Weston Smith on something, and then somebody else comes in with like, but I wanted to ask this, then obviously we're going to say like, no, wait your turn. We'll discuss that in a bit. But I think it's fine if two guest speakers are like getting into some sort of point of contention, and they want to like, and so long as it's not going completely off the rails. Obviously, we have the power to shut it down at any point we want. But I think this is fine.
For sure. So what I'm going to do now is unmute everyone. Sue and G, I want you guys to have this back and forth as long as you want. Not as long as you want to, but for the time that you want to, like I'm willing to, as long as it's continuing to facilitate a good discussion. I want you guys to have a back and forth. It's not because I'm dodging anyone. Okay, G, I'm happy to have a back and forth with you as well. But Sue is bringing up a point of contention, and if you guys are willing to have it out, then I want to see it go ahead. So we'll start off with Sue to continue her latest point, and then G can jump back in, and we will go from there. And then I promise we'll bring it to a close and bring in the other speakers. But for the time being, Sue, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, if I'm off real topic, feel free everyone to enlighten me. I heard the part about like why we should speak for a war in Iran. Basically what I understood is like why does this thing matter compared to like other types of aggressions? And I heard the conversation being rather on like economic units and the material consequences, and if value is subjective, why should like one thing be worse than other? So if that was not the conversation, then I'll backtrack and like, okay, I'm sorry, that's what I understood. So like I guess like that thing I want to clarify, am I off the topic or was this the topic?
No, that like for as far as I'm concerned, you were making a good point as far as like whether we can
I mean,
assign different moral values to different immoral acts. Like that seemed to be perfectly fine.
So you think I was like not off rail with the topic?
No, not at all. I don't think so. As I said, I would have interrupted you and told you to. I would have muted your mic and been like, "Hey, we're getting off topic here." If you were off topic, like I'm perfectly willing to do that. So, that's fine.
I mean, she literally just said that she was coming into this discussion about what the example that Zulu just said that I said was disanalogous. So I mean, it was an irrelevant point. That was what I was saying.
So
And
remind me, what is your?
I was
can you
having to
summarize your
address
points for me?
something. I was having to address something else than I was addressing before.
Okay,
Right.
so
And I just wanted to keep the discussion like I didn't want to get into anything else too deep. Just keep the discussion like on a straight path. Right.
All right, so here's what we'll do then. G, can you restate your position for me? And then Sue, if you want to reply to that and you think you have a relevant reply, then
Right.
please go ahead.
My only point was that in discussing like intervention, right? We have to be very, very careful with what we say, right? What we're talking about, right? Because if we start getting into these sort of questions, right, about the morality of the aggression or what if, let's compare the effects it has on this group of people versus this group of people, or like this active intervention versus this active intervention, and it's like Rothbard really emphasizes, right, in Power and Market, why we have to be very careful not to do that, right? Because what that does, right, is just, I mean, it completely like disintegrates what we're talking about when we're talking about intervention, right? Because by those standards, we would not be able to differentiate it from the analysis of like, a private defense agency, right? This Rothbard talks all about this, right? It's very, very important that we
Sue, did you want to reply to that at all? Like, did
are
you have
clear on the fact, right,
fine.
that the effects of intervention, right, on social utility or whatever are completely indeterminate. You cannot say anything about it other than it can never increase it. You can't make any comparisons, right? There's no standard for.
All right, you've made your point. I'm going to let Sue jump back in now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand much of his point, so that may be on me. I just to be simplify it as simple as I can. I just don't want to see people die. I'm an atheist, so this is like I believe this is the only life people get. I don't believe in afterlife, so I think we as libertarians, if we can do activism to prevent death as much as possible, we should do that because that's something you'll never get back. And in terms of interventions and wars, I do think like killing someone on just survival is like one of the most immoral actions you can do, and that's why I'm like so sensitive about these like international wars and stuff. So that's what I was looking for, and that's why I think like keying someone's car is like yeah, it's bad. It's a bad action, but I do think there are like levels of like and how like immoral and evil an action is, and like how evil like another action such as killing a car is. That's
It's
the
like
point I was trying to make.
you would be putting
I
it
would
on the
complete my
same
argument.
scale
Sorry,
as
but
moral things. Anything of value, you'd be putting it on the same scale, and you just can't do that. It's incommensurate. It's something else, right? When we're talking about bad, right? When we're talking about evil, we're talking about evasion. There's no like evasion, like is not comparable to thinking, right? It's its own category of things, right? That of actions, right? That we have to analyze differently, right? By different standard, but not by the same standard. If we do that, right, then things are I mean they're incommensurate. Then you're just gonna be
So I don't think that
conflating
follows.
them and
Well, I don't think it
equivocating them.
follows. I don't think it
No,
follows
I'm speaking to her
whatsoever.
as an objectivist, right?
Right. I'm just
This
saying that I
isn't
don't think it follows whatsoever that like
but like she
I don't think
said,
it's incommensurate that I can say, hey, there's a clear line here. If you like, but that line is aggression. Like if you cross that boundary, then you're committing an act of aggression, and that is always immoral. I don't, and unjustified.
no,
That
we
is,
need a theory.
I can
This is why
state that.
Rothbard says we need a theory, right? Specifically for intervention, for analyzing intervention, specifically separate from analyzing the market, right? And
Yeah, okay, that's
analyze.
fine, but no one's talking about like analyzing it as a market. Like what we're saying is that you can make determinations. Like it is in principle possible to make determinations about whether some act of aggression is more or less immoral than some other act of aggression.
That doesn't make any sense, right?
I don't
Immoral
understand why
is
it doesn't
some
make any
no,
sense.
because
Like,
we're
Can I
you
say
don't
something real
understand.
quick?
I don't
One
think you
second.
understand what I'm saying when I talk about
Yeah,
theory.
I think I'm trying to understand what you're saying. You're saying that things that have value that can be quantifiable should not have the same standard of metric of using moral, like like a way to quantify the moral value of something,
Right.
right? So you're saying that these two things must be separated and they're mutually exclusive.
We have to look at what's being evaded, right? What's like like in order to analyze it, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about
So
evasion. Right?
I have a question for you. Give me an example of something that does not have value that you can make a moral
I don't
statement
know
on
what you
what's
mean. Like, does not have value that you can make. What do you mean?
like you're saying that this is when it comes to intervention, like let's say if keying a car has a monetary value that we can look at to say this is bad, right? You're saying that
I don't know what you mean. Like, this is bad. I say like the action, right, is an act of evasion, right, and it's bad because they're and what is the bad reference here? It's that there's
they're
a
incurring a
fact, some
monetary
fact.
loss.
No, there's some fact of reality that they're evading, right? That they're thinking they can wipe out, but reality wipes them out instead, right?
all right, cool. I think we
But
kind of.
this is besides the point, right? This is besides the point. The point is that we it's not about moral evaluation, right? Sue came in here about talking about moral terms and all that, right? It's really about what you're talking about. What are we evaluating, right? And all of these sorts of questions, right? It's about the utility, right? The effects of aggression on the utility of these people. And these are praxeological questions, right? And we know what praxeology says about what we can say about the utility of other people, right?
I want to hear from Casimir now. He's got his hand up, and then we'll go to you can always change your mind. But Casimir, please jump in, man.
Sorry, I'll be brief because my setup is not perfect right now. I would like the proposition of this entire conversation restated if possible. Like, I heard the answer from G. I'm just I'm a late joiner trying to link it to something concrete as an example. But also, there is a point that I already disagree with a little bit. I think that.
Would you like me to restate the contention first, and then you can like jump off that, or like what would be your preference?
Sure.
I can
Sure.
state my position very, very clearly, right? There is no standard for the comparison of the effects of aggression on utility. That's very simple.
Okay, so
There is no
I'm just going to
standard.
jump in
There's
straight
no
away and
valid
say
standard.
that I'm just going to jump in straight away. I'll let Casimir jump in, but like an interpersonal utility comparison wasn't part of my premise, or I
Yes,
don't
it
think it is
was.
either.
Yes, it was.
I wouldn't say no. Well, I'm just going to tell you it's not.
Can I
I
say
mean,
something real
you
quick?
can disagree, but anyway,
You
look,
guys,
I don't want to get off topic. I want to let Casimir jump back in because I asked him to
Can I
speak.
just
But
say one single sentence, just 5
all right,
seconds? If
all right.
topic was what Jesus just said, I am sorry. Like I misunderstood what the topic was, and I did change it to morality. If that was indeed the topic, because I thought it was a question that was inevitably related to morality. So it was in purely economic units and discussing like retribution or something like
No,
that.
yeah, we
Yeah,
just
then I'm sorry.
disagree there on the moral thing, right? And like that just came into the discussion a little bit.
All right, cool. Let's go, Casimir.
so there is no. This is just a general conversation. There's nothing specific being discussed.
No,
right?
so the specific reference was we were talking about military interventions by states, and my claim was that you can make a determination that some military interventions are worse than others through specific criteria. Now, I didn't make any specific claims about what those criteria might be. I was just making a general claim that I think we can ascertain, like in some objective sense, that there are worse military conflicts to get engaged in than others. So with that, Casimir, please go ahead.
I got it. Thank you. I'll be brief as much as I can. I believe that there is a problem here. One of that the problem is just natural convergence. So I don't think that utility is the correct word, but an order of preference is the correct term. And I do believe that because reality exists and existence exists, and humans exist within reality, and humans are similar to each other, and in fact, rationally capable beings in the universe are most likely similar to each other because their development is convergent, and the environments in which they can inhabit are also convergent. For all of these reasons, I believe that it's sort of it's unbelievable actually to claim that you cannot estimate and guess how other people are evaluating reality, and therefore, if you
By what standard? There's no profit and loss.
All right, so G, I'm just going to keep muting you if you're going to I feel like I've been very, very patient with the interruptions, but listen, I'm just going to make a point here. Like, I've been very patient as far as the interruptions, but like at some point, like I just need to I need you to let people speak. So with that, Casimir, please jump back in.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't accept that we're talking about utility. I don't even know what that word means. I think it's incoherent. We've been proving that it's incoherent, so I don't know why you keep using it.
What do you mean? This is literally taken straight from chapter 1 of Power and Market, bro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I regret to inform you that I don't care about what some old person wrote in the past. I care about the actual arguments that they presented. So I don't care about like the page, and in fact, I'm very ignorant of the specific pages where it was written. So the specific argument is that this is what I'm telling you. So if you say that life is a standard of value, you are saying that as a human, as part of existence. Therefore, you're bound to. Similarly, you can doubt that other people evaluate reality in the same manner, but we don't. We require proof for that. For example, if I say that the sky is blue, and I generally mean a spectrum of color, and somebody claims, "Oh no, other people see it differently," that's a positive claim that they have to then prove, because I have no reason to believe that people see the skies differently. I know of a few medical conditions, but like as a generality, you would have to prove to me that we're analyzing the data stream differently, and you would have to further prove to me that we are different sufficiently, where our evaluation of reality is different sufficiently on the grand things. Like, for example, you might like jazz music. I might not like.
Can I just say that this has nothing to do with anything I said?
Oh yes, it does. I'll tie it to the next sentence.
Well, it doesn't. Like I can
However,
tell you
you
why.
claim that you don't prefer to live your life, and I claim that I do, then I would question your claim. I would question whether I would say that's a performative contradiction. I would say people in other countries prefer to live their life. They prefer to be to some extent free in their lives, as long as they're behaving in a rational manner. They might have delusions. That's a different story. They might be evading. That's a different story. But to the extent
Right, exactly. That's the story here. This is like we're not talking about seeing things differently. We're not talking about seeing things differently. We're talking about distortion, right? We're talking about the seen versus the unseen. That's my whole point here, right? Whether there's one act of intervention versus versus another act of intervention, right? Uh, there's no direct test, right, on the success or failure of it, or there's no profits or losses. There's no nor enjoyable or unsatisfying consumption. It's nothing. It's and that's why the voter, right, or anybody who's like they would never be able to discover the error, right, of the ruler, right, from looking like the way you're saying it, right, from analyzing the way you're saying it by those standards, right, because they're arbitrary. They have no basis, right, no basis because of the distortion.
you're just stating that.
All
But
right,
I'm telling you,
real quick,
basis right
Casimir. I apologize. I promise I'll let you jump back in. G, next time you interrupt, I'm just going to drop you, all right, and we can just move on. Because I'm just not. I just don't want it to keep happening. So please, I promise Casimir won't take too long, and then you can jump back in. But I don't want this to keep being an interruption fest. I just don't like it, and I don't think the audience likes it either. So
Okay, then I'll heed to my promise. G, we should come back to discuss this later, but let me give you my main point of evaluation. So, if let's say that the intervention was to turn, let's say a government is invading another country under the premise that a lot of people in that country love jazz music, and we're going to make them not like jazz music. We're going to force them into, hard rock camps and screamo. Now, that intervention would be impossible to evaluate on your standard because the moral value, the place in my list of preferences where about what music I'm listening to is relatively low compared to my very existence, compared to continuous survival. And so, however, if we evaluate some action and the result of it, or the goal of it, as in stopping aggression, that is a very hard evaluation whether aggression stops or not, whether aggression gets reduced or not overall as the result of the action. And then the survival of the people involved. How many people survive? That's also objective standard, clearly a moral evaluation. You know that people within themselves, their lives have a certain value unless they are, they are a threat to others. That's maybe that affects the evaluation somehow. But when somebody says there's no difference between an intervention that has collateral damage of this or that, and there's no moral distinction, the amount of collateral damage will definitely change the evaluation from the moral standpoint. Legally, it might be perfectly legal. By the way, you might have a situation where a whole bunch of people line up as hostages, and you have to shoot the perpetrator, and you harm a lot of people by defending yourself. It will be perfectly legal, but the moral evaluation might be quite complex. And what you're evaluating is the top of the things that are super convergent among people. Okay, so I think that you should think about this, and maybe we'll debate it elsewhere. Thank you.
Are we going to talk about the claim on morality is about truth and not about true nuts?
No, I don't want to talk about that with you. Not here, anyways.
all right, we don't have to talk about that. I mean, G, did you want to come back in on that at all?
I mean, like I said before, this way of doing things, without distinction, you're not going to be able to make the distinction, right, between intervention and like any other act, right? Because you're just making everything arbitrary, right? You don't know what we're talking about anymore when it comes to anything that's going on in this analysis. So, yeah, that's really all I got to say. Read Rothbard. I put the links in the chat to, read. So, yeah, read Rothbard. That's all I got to say.
Casimir, did you want to reply at all, or will we go to the rest of the hands? Up to you.
No. Go forward. Sorry, I took enough time. Thank you.
No, all good. Appreciate that. We'll go to You Can Always Change Your Mind next, and then we'll hit up Acorn. But You Can Always Change Your Mind. Please jump in.
Yeah, I have a specific hypothetical that's quite relevant to me. That I want to make sure I've got the right answer to. So, let's say X, Y, and Z are persons under the same government. If person X steals money and/or assets from person Y, and X is using the corrupt monopolized statist legal system to get away with it partially or fully, now can that be justly regarded as the government stealing from Y? Let's say C is on welfare and has a deal with Y such that C pays back Y's taxes, and then since Y like C, Y pays back the money to Z voluntarily. Now, if C gets so much welfare that it's way more than the taxes paid by Y, could X's theft of Y, helped by the state, be considered in the same way as taxes, such that C's deal to Y would extend to this, such that it would still be libertarian for Z? I could restate it in different ways if you want. I guess went faster.
Yeah, I can't type right now. I don't know if Zula's been typing that down, but so
I was struggling to follow it. Could you restate it, but with Crusoe and Friday? Because I find these like algebraic examples often like are just confusing.
Okay. Could I maybe I could have it written down, so maybe I could send it to you afterwards, and we don't have to waste time on that right now.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure. Cool. Appreciate that. We'll move on to Acorn, and then unless this gets like super contentious, and then we can keep going. I'm probably going to start winding things down. But Acorn, please jump in and go ahead.
I just want to say that I obviously don't know exactly what Zulu and Monhop's intention for this show is, but I don't think it was made with the intention of long debates in mind. It's more of a rotating guest, sort of like everyone gets a chance to speak for the show. But there's a lot of debates between people within the movement I would like to see. For example, I know that Zulu and Chronic disagree on defensive theory. And like Sue and G obviously just had their debate there. And I still haven't finished my debate with Casimir yet. So I would like to see if maybe we can organize some like debate, specific debate streams or something like that, where the purpose is to get some guests to like do a long debate. But I just don't think that's this podcast is the appropriate place for that.
So yeah. I'll say, Zulu, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that would be if it's like specifically Sue versus G, or Casimir versus G, or whatever else, Nye versus G, hopefully. That would be outside the scope of the Remnant. Like, I do want this show to be specifically, some topic. We've introduced topics now, which I think is perfectly fine. Where people can just come on and discuss it, comment on what's been said. I do want it to be somewhat open. It's not specifically going to be these two people are going at it, because I've got plenty of that on my channel where I want to debate some particular person, and then it's just us, because I think this format would be poor for such a show. Because if I want to see Casimir and G go at it, I don't want even myself to be able to butt in and say, well, actually, I think this thing, right? Because then that undermines the purpose of what's happening, right? Casimir might be trying to build up some structure against G, or G might be trying to get some specific point across. And if I come in there with my own structure I'm trying to build, well, then that's disintegrated. It doesn't go together. So for this type of thing, where it's a panel discussion, it does have to be, where you're not necessarily going to be able to build your entire structure. Obviously, if I'm building a structure, it's my show. I would definitely come in and say, nope, we're sticking with this until I finish. But I can't really give other people that sort of leeway because I don't know what's going on in their mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say on that as well, this is the same reason I don't like multi-person debates, because people just bring in like their own, like people undercut each other's arguments on the same side because like they have different premises, and then so it all just gets very, very confusing. So look, I think I'm happy for it to be like we kind of developed into like as we saw, like Sue and G obviously had their back and forth like that, and then Casimir and G kind of had their brief one just before. Like to me, that's okay. I'm happy for people within the speaker panel to respond to one another and have some back and forths. But there is going to be a specific like parameters around that, and it's basically just going to be when or me and Zulu decides we've had enough of it and we think the audience wants to move on. It's just going to be our whims, I suppose, for that respect. But yeah, I'm happy to have some of that back and forth. Like and we'll just cut people off when I'm done having that discussion. But yeah, no, it's not going to be. I think the Kaufman stream was good, where we got like someone with some notoriety that we have disagreements with, and they kind of act as like almost like a third co-hosting type situation where they're they're answering questions. Like I'm okay with that, at facilitating that, because I think that that's still an open panel discussion, which is what this platform is supposed to be specifically for, and why we chose this platform. But yeah, having it be kind of closed off, probably not going to be what the Remnant is for. But that, in saying that, like that's what could be for another platform. Like that it seems like that'd be good to be able to facilitate these kind of debates on a public stage. I just don't think that's specifically what we want the Remnant to be. But no, I appreciate that, G. So listen, I want to kind
That
of
was
wind things
Acorn.
down
You
now.
asked that.
Oh, sorry, Acorn. Sorry, Acorn. Sorry, man.
No problem.
So I want to start winding things down now. Just because I think we've been at it for like close to 3.5 hours now. So I think that's kind of going to be our rough kind of time frame most of the time, I think, because that takes me through most of the morning on a Saturday. So that's pretty good from my perspective. So we'll hear from Freedom Club, and I think that's going to be the last hand, and then we will wrap things up. So Freedom Club, if you want to go ahead, the guy with your hand up, please do.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
You still there?
I can't hear you now, though. If you're speaking, I
Yeah.
can't hear you. Hello?
Do you want to drop down and then come back up if you can hear us? It might be.
Yeah, I'm going to remove you from the speaker panel. Oh no, he's removed himself.
Yeah, so presumably he can hear us, but I will say, like, this is why, this is a podcast with both me and Monhop. So that's why, Monhop's able to come in here and decide, I want to hear from this guy. I want to cut this guy off. Like it's a collaborative effort in my view. Like if a host is deciding that they want to take it in a certain direction, there's a lot of leeway there. And I will say, Monhop does put in a decent amount of legwork for this podcast, like all these topics and everything. I don't handle any of that. I just kind of come in here and I've got like a podcast already there for me. Obviously I'm bringing in the audience, but Monhop is also putting in his own legwork there.
No, I appreciate that, Zulu. Freedom Club, you're back up on the speaker panel now. If you want to come off mic and try and go ahead, then please do.
Oh, I think it's supposed to work now.
Yeah, you're better now. I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. First of all, we're all anarchists or libertarians here, so I do want to emphasize that while making 2 points. First of all, the usage of the term anti-Zionist, as you mentioned, is indeed we all oppose the existence of the state of Israel, but the usage of the term anti-Zionist usually refers only to people who hate the Zionist project for being a Jewish project of any kind, whether they are Islamists or Nazis or whatever. So I distinguish just being anarchists in general and being anti-Zionists, because what most people who do support states but hate the state of Israel because of arbitrary reasons use. So that's one distinction I would make. And the second one, and this is regarding what Sue said about the economic incentives, I would like to go a bit more, as Zulu calls it, the philosophical history. What was it? The philosophical
theory of history.
Theory of history, right? So,
which, by the way,
sorry.
just not to cut you off too much, it's from Leonard Peikoff. I didn't come up with it.
Oh, right. No, right. I do remember something about. Anyways, so there is a reason why Iran and other states like it do not want to engage with the US dollar. So because they have an arbitrary reason to do it. It's because they have clear ideological intentions and goals in mind. It's not for economic reasons that Iran called its axis the axis of resistance. They're not just resisting the dollar. They're not just burning up dollars or something. They did engage with the US for a bit. Their purpose is to resist any anti-Islamic, anti-Islamist organizations, especially ones that are Shiite. They're a branch of Islam, and that includes especially Western liberalism, the allowing people having some human rights, and for some weird reason, Zionism as a force that allows Jews to exist not as dhimmis, as second-class citizens under an Islamic rule. So there is a bit more nuance to opposing that regime than just merely economic reasons, as you might have implied or outright said. Yeah, I would like to hear what you have to say on that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, so I agree. Like I don't think like Iran is like this like country that is like funding. I mean, it is basically Hezbollah. Like Hezbollah is Iran and Iran is Hezbollah. I don't think this country that funds and supports Hezbollah and contributed to the civil war in Lebanon, and like domestically they're not a cool country. And obviously, like if you left it to the Iranians, they will genocide the Jews there. Like that is not undeniable. Yeah, I completely agree with those. I never disagree. Like I don't have these positions like Iran is heroic. They're fighting this heroic battle against the U.S. dollars. That was not the point. But obviously, in that conversation, I was referring to the economic incentives that exist that U.S. cares more about, rather than like, oh, Iran is like putting women on hijab, or Hezbollah. I mean, of course, Israel does care about Israel as Hezbollah, but I was focusing on like the real obsession in Iran. A huge part of it is an economic incentive for the U.S., which is, first of all, the main one is protecting their dominant status. I'm sorry, I'm playing Dota at the same time. They're protecting their status with dollar being the world currency, the argument they made. And the second one is like the current system requires constant law, so constant war, so the system can go on. But like in terms of everything with Iran, I do agree, but at the same time, we have to be careful about these things because they're also trying to manufacture consent. I mean, they're trying to manufacture consent about Turkey right now. Like literally the most like American Middle Eastern country out there. and they're trying to manufacture consent. So we also have to be careful. These things said about these countries, how much of it is also like complete media propaganda, and how much of it is like a legitimate what's the word, attack. But at the same time, of course, in the end of the day, none of this justifies bombing a school for me, and I don't like bite the casual Israeli defense that like, oh, like Iran used is like the school children as body shield, because like how many times can you use that as an excuse without providing any evidence to the general public, right?
Okay. Several things. You're right. Not Israel and especially the U.S. are not innocent, nor are they necessarily genuine. I mean, actually relatively recently, the U.S. is quite honest about its objectives. Say in Venezuela, talked about bringing democracy or end oppression, like it was 20 years ago. Now they just say we want oil, we want the oil. Stop not playing along the U.S. narrative and goals. Stop doing that. That's why they invaded Venezuela, and for various reasons, that's why they invaded Iran. One other thing, a more comic thing. You said you can't distinguish us. I mean, we're rather clear. Isn't that the most obvious thing? Look at our noses. Isn't that supposed to help? That is Ashkenazi Jews. Yeah, we have noses.
Number the Ashkenazis look very European. They look like Slavs. They're very Slavic.
Well, we are mixed with Italians and stuff. So yeah.
I actually
but
have
hey,
an empirical study
All
that
white
proves
people look the
that
same.
Jews
All
don't have bigger
Europeans
noses
look
than
the
anyone
same
else.
to me, bro.
well, before Turkey becomes officially an Israeli enemy, you should visit, then see how.
Has it already become? Whenever I see someone, an Israeli politician, talking, it's about like, yeah, we took down Iran. Our next target is Turkey now.
I'm just so glad
because-
that we I'm so glad we got the Turkish woman on the stage, and suddenly this all became an ethnic debate about who's really white and who's really Jewish.
Yeah, that'll be hilarious. I would love to join more on these attempts. Anyways,
Listen, Casimir is a Jew and he looks very white to me, so case is closed. Jews are white.
yeah, there are white Jews, there are black Jews, there are
Casimir
Jews
is
who look
currently
just like
slamming his
Turks.
keyboard in indignation right now. I'm going to let Casimir jump in and respond to that scurrilous accusation.
He's one of the
He's got his
black
hand up.
Israelites. I've seen Casimir. He's a black man, proud black man.
I'm a black Israelite and whiteface, and thus a Zionist. But really, what I was going to say is, I'm issuing a debate challenge. So and this is the proposition. Under my analysis, if we had a mostly ANCAP world, with the exception of the BRICS powers on the other side, we would be bombing them more often, more intensely, and many more schoolgirls would be killed, and it would be fully legally justified as part of stopping aggression. So I think that the idea that the state is efficient at bombing people that need to be bombed is, I think that's actually a weak statement. The production of defense would be more efficient under capitalism, and it would say that aggression must be stopped. And at times, that means that if IRGC members place their children next to their military bases so they have easier access, and you blow up their military base, and the only way you can do that is, say, by a thermonuclear weapon, then it's tough luck for those people nearby.
I think the hardest lift for that, and I'm not going to accept this debate challenge because I'm not well versed enough in the specific property claims of that region. But I think the hardest lift is always going to be like demonstrating that this is the gentlest means you have available to you to alleviate this aggression. It's a strong stance to take that, like, yeah, we just have no choice but to use, like, say, thermonuclear weapons or cluster bombs or drone strikes in order to alleviate this aggression. I think that would be. I mean, of course, there's hypothetical cases where that might be possible. I don't think it's necessarily the case in this case.
I'm
So
not.
I can have that debate if we schedule it, but like not right now.
So I'm claiming that in reality it will be precision strikes all around, much like it is right now. But the idea that many ANCAPs have, that if you precision strike a weapons storage facility and it blows up and projectiles fly all over the place and they detonate a school, therefore your action was illegal or even immoral. I think that is like a jumping to conclusion that to me reeks of more of third worldism than actual moral analysis, than actual caring about the facts. Because if you did care about the facts, you'd probably pause and say, I can't determine that yet. I have to, for example, watch forensics of that region. Maybe there will be an unmasking of satellite imagery of what happened. And then I'll be able to make a decision about whether it was actually caused by the aggressor or caused by the defender. So that's the level. And interestingly, the burden of proof is actually on the other side. However, we live in an environment where ANCAPs and libertarians are largely on the left on foreign policy issues. We largely believe in history written by leftists. We therefore evaluate the conflicts in the Middle East from a leftist perspective. And therefore, the knee-jerk reaction is by Dave Smith before any forensics, before any proof being revealed, by Dave Smith types to line up and say, oh, that is horrible and the attack should not have happened. Instead of saying, that is horrible in itself and I don't want that to happen, they're acting as the prosecutor without presenting the evidence.
No, I get what you mean. It seems like Sue has taken up the gauntlet, so to speak. I'm assuming you guys will be able to get in touch with one another to do a debate, because I would definitely tune into that. On
I'm
whatever
okay with
platform.
like scheduling a debate, Twitter space or something on this.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys want to set up a group chat or something, I would be happy to like host it or something, and you guys can hash it out. As I said, obviously in separate to the
Sure,
Remnant, of course.
I'm
But
in a game right now, but once the match is done, I'll just DM Kashmir.
yeah, cool. All right, and if you guys need me to facilitate something, let me know. With that said, I think we're going to wind things down now. So Zulu, did you want any final comments before we close things off for another episode of the Remnant?
No final comments at the moment. I will give like closing comments, but I do have first a triple super chat from Philosophos1, who gave a total of $15. He had to split it up, I presume, because it was too long to fit into one super chat. So he says, in debate, I point out the tension that what they fear is the reformation of a state, but there is already a state. That usually stumps them for a bit. But eventually they say, well, it'll turn into an even worse state. And they just hold on to the idea that checks and balances will somehow stop greater or more frequent aggression. Pardon me. My question is, how do you respond to this? What do they say, and how do you respond? So, let me just try and parse this. Yeah, it seems like this is kind of like the minarchist response to anarcho-capitalism. They're like, well, a state will reform, and it'll be a worse state. Which you're entirely correct that the first thing you should say is, well, okay, so it would indeed be really bad if we had an anarchist society, and then a group of people got together, and they were able to start extracting resources from people involuntarily, and they became accepted by the population, and they became a state. Yeah, that would be very bad. That is the correct tack to go down in the first case, because you're basically just describing a state there. And then they're saying, well, it'll be an even worse state than we have right now. I mean, like, the question is, why would it be worse? Why would it be a worse state? Because, like, the only way you get to an anarchist society is if people are, by and large, very much amenable to the anarchist philosophy. That's the only way you could get that to happen. So, what is the cause of a state to be bad? What is the cause of it to be worse than some other state? And the answer is it's the philosophy of the day. It's whatever the philosophy of the day says. That's what's going to happen. It's whatever people generally believe in that will obtain. So these people, they need to figure out a proper philosophy of history. That's what I would say. But thank you very much for the money. And so for closing, to shut down this podcast for good, I just want to say thank you to everybody who came along, everybody who commented. It was a lively discussion. I think it's very important that we have these types of discussions, that the remnant, the actual vanguard of libertarianism, gets our foot in the door, because it's kind of been monopolized by people who have no philosophy, have no real objective standards to base their beliefs on. Even though I really don't care that much about foreign policy, obviously I think it's very much a downstream effect of more fundamental things. But it's definitely good to have these discussions, and I think we had a lively discussion here. So thank you very much, everybody who came along, especially those who donated. We'll see you again in 2 weeks hence.
For sure. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'll close it off here. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll all see you next time.
Check Discord, Sulu.
Well, right now. Oh, I see. Yes, I'll read that. Alrighty. So yeah, thank you everybody who's watching the stream. I'll try and get the next video out toot sweet, and I'll see you all either in 2 weeks' time. Also, I should mention I've got another podcast that I'm on now called Ask ANCAP. We're working out the specific branding with the guy who's running it. I think he's going to rebrand into, the channel is going to be more, let me just see if he's done that. The channel's going to be more about like him in particular, and then Ask ANCAP is going to be a specific show on there. This is the channel if you're interested. But yeah, no, I'm going to be on this pretty much regularly, and we'll see where that goes. It's basically going to be like a call-in show, much like the Remnant, but it's going to be hosted over on Discord. The person who runs this is a good friend of mine. He really wanted to get back into libertarian YouTube, as it turns out. I've known him for a long time. Actually, not that long. When I say that, it sounds like he's a childhood friend, but no, he's not. I found out about him through YouTube. But yeah, it's sure to be a good show. We're gonna keep this going, hopefully for a long time. And so yeah, if you're interested in this sort of format, go check out this channel. Check out the first episode we had. We had some technical difficulties here and there. The audio was a little bit spotty, but we'll hopefully get that ironed out for future episodes. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I'm not sure exactly what schedule the Ask ANCAP show will be on, but we'll work that out.